mixing it up here. There is one announcement I'd like to read, and this regards to the closed session that began last Tuesday and ended Friday. The board's closed session continued from last Tuesday. It was completed Friday. The board took action to accept the resignation of the Director of the Community Development Agency effective August 1st, 2008 by the vote of 4 to 1, 4 in favor, 1 against, and that was Supervisor Tryon. So that is our announcement. We now move to the consent agenda, and if these are normally things that are expected to be non-controversial. If there's a board member, staff person, or member of the public who wishes to take any item off the consent agenda for further discussion, you may do so at this moment. Board? Staff? Anybody from the community wish to take any item off?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull...
Are you rising to take an item off the consent calendar? Okay, in that case, I'd like to hear a motion.
Just a moment, Mr. Chairman. I would like to pull item 9.
Okay, we're going to have a further discussion on invasive weed awareness. Is there a motion on the balance?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. We now move to item 9, Supervisor Thomas.
Well, it just struck me as almost inexcusable that we could let a declaration of Invasive Weed Awareness Week go by without some discussion or some acknowledgement. I mean, how can you have a week in which we're observing invasive weeds without having the board talk about it? So.
I couldn't answer that, Russ, but I know before us we have somebody who can, our Ag Commissioner.
Well, good morning, Mary Mutz, Ag Commissioner. Is there any specific question you'd like to ask before?
What can we do about eradicating star thistle in this county? It's taking over this county, and it's just really quite deplorable.
We can get cooperation from landowners to take control measures on their own land. A staff member here, Sean Castile, is available to answer any specific questions about biology of the weed or control measures. He is quite the expert in the department. The department also has some play in controlling star thistle. In the years past, we have sprayed the sides of the roads for control of the weed. This year we did some work along roads going up to quarries, which went over quite well with the quarries and the landowners on those roads to the quarries. Do you have any specific questions for Sean?
Okay, Sean, yes.
Yes. Castile Ag Department.
For the citizens in this county that might have this weed infestation problem, can you quantify in approximate parameters what it would cost per acre to eradicate this weed by spraying?
It really depends upon the equipment that people have available to them, but the number that I commonly see is about $30 per acre. And that's with an herbicide treatment, which is a very good treatment, a very good way of controlling yellow star thistle. There are those that use goats, for instance. They'll fence off an area and bring in goats, so there's an alternative to using an herbicide. I'm not sure what the cost per acre is with the goat control method. But no matter what you do, we highly recommend that you go out, everybody go out and take a look at your property and take an inventory of the weeds that may be out there. Weeds, they're kind of like a biological wildfire, and a lot of times they often go unnoticed. And pretty soon you have a very big problem on your hands. And if you don't know what's out there, you don't know what to do.
Okay, well, it strikes me as $30 an acre is almost an inconsequential amount of money to pay to get rid of this scourge. I mean,
it is.
What is the product that you recommend?
What we use commonly, we use a product called Transline. It's a Dow. It's a product manufactured by Dow AgroSciences. There's another Dow product. It's called Milestone. It works also very well on yellow star thistle. If you're able to use herbicides, as I mentioned, there are alternatives to herbicides also that you can do with the goats or hand pulling. Many citizens have property where their property is not so large that they couldn't go out and hand pull weeds. For our cattlemen who have lots of range land where we're talking hundreds of acres, it's not feasible for them to go out there, and the herbicide is a very, very, very good method of control.
Okay, well, I've learned in past reading and stuff that if a horse consumes a fairly small quantity of this stuff, it kind of makes his brain go to mush. Is that correct? That's absolutely correct, and that's one of several poisonous plants that we have in the county that are toxic to horses. Common groundsel is another plant that is toxic to horses, and also fiddleneck. That's another plant that many horse owners are unaware of that is also toxic to horses. So there's more than just yellow star thistle that's toxic to horses. Okay, well, that's all the questions I have, and if there's any other,
Well, I should probably mention while we're at it that Taliba Al-Rafiq of Calaveras, Kashmir swears by the goat method and welcomes calls about that.
So, great.
There's a gentleman behind you that wanted to talk.
Good morning. John Pargett, Mountain Ranch Road, and I have finally hammered the 5-star thistle off the site at home. It basically started years ago from the hay trucks. You'd first see it on the side of the road that the wind would blow the seed. That was at a time when the county had stopped roadside spraying. They're starting it again. At least you can catch it there. Goats do work, but you have to be very diligent. You have to realize the 5-star thistle seed can lay in the ground 4 or 5 years and germinate later. It won't rot right away. Once you get an area eradicated, the key is diligence. You need to cruise it, and when you see that nasty little yellow, you have to attack it, and it takes, when you're herbiciding it, it will take 1, 2, 3 times because the seed is in the ground and it will sprout. And you catch that and you think you've got it, it will sprout again. So all I can say is a lot of diligence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on, yes, apparently this is an issue that has more comment coming. Won't do the pledge, but we'll talk about noxious weeds.
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson from McCullamy Hill. I wasn't sure that the Transline and the other herbicides were readily available to the general public, and whether it was the case that somebody wanting to apply that to their property had to go through special training, thereby making it something that may not be suitable for the regular homeowner to apply, and may thereby up the price of getting someone to apply it for you.
Well, luckily the expert in the field is standing right behind you. I'm sure he'll answer this right now.
Sure. If you're a homeowner, you can purchase Transline over the counter at some chemical dealers. Here in Calaveras County, we do not have a chemical dealership, and so you'll have to go out of county. But I would just like to remind that if you are an agricultural producer, meaning you're producing an ag commodity such as cattle, that you would have to have an operator ID. It's essentially like a permit that's issued by our office. Okay, you're an ag producer. So for those of you who are not an ag producer, you can call our office and we can provide you with some information. I'd also like to point out, too, that here in Calaveras County, we have a farm advisor. He's with the UC Cooperative Extension, and he has expertise in this particular area, and you can call their office for specific information on your property.
Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Thomas, is there a motion on this?
Well, I just am very impressed that now we're all aware, as we were charged with the responsibility of having an awareness week of these invasive weeds, and now we are all aware. So, yes, I will move this item.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Passes on a 5-0 vote. We now move to public comments. These are anticipated to be 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes per topic generally, and I see we already have our first speaker.
Mr. Chair, honorable members of the board, as you all know, last week we closed our assessment roll. What you don't know is that every year we have, Leslie Davis, assistant assessor. What we do every year is a roll close debrief. We'll be doing that with the staff tomorrow, and as a result, we are closing the department tomorrow morning and will not be open for business until noon.
All right, thank you. Before we have any other speakers, the folks in back, there is one seat over here, 2 seats back here, and 3 back here if you'd like to come in and take a seat. I think there's some people even out in the hallway there. It may be a lot of comment this morning, so those of you who don't want to stand for hours might want to grab the seats while they're available. All right. Mr.
Frank Ginger. I'm here because of 2 reasons. One reason, I went by Todd Barr's house the other day, and he's got a company vehicle there that don't have Calaveras County on it, and why is he driving home a company vehicle? I thought that was stopped 8 years ago. The second reason why I'm here, because the man over there, the county come up and stole his rock. And they'll only give it back if he does certain things. That ain't fair. So now he don't want the rock, but that's $5,000 worth of rock the county stole. I mean, aren't we supposed to get, can I go out and steal $5,000 worth of rock? I don't think so. Thank you.
As the Public Works Director here, the issue actually out there, and you spoke at the last meeting about this, I did check into it. The rock was in the right-of-way. It was considered to be blocking emergency vehicle widths. It was taken off the property. It is held at Glencoe, and it can be returned with the understanding that the 20-foot width required for emergency vehicles, well, that is the...
It's not a county road. The sheriff was up there the other day, okay? He told me flat out, this has never been a county road. It's not a county road now. I spent $30,000 on litigation to protect my rights on my property, and the judge ordered that they get what they used, which is about 10.5 feet, which will never be 20 feet. It's not now, and it never will be. I also have right here in the report, okay, this here is called the reporter's transcript, okay? And it states in there that I have a right to fence up to the road. And if I have a right to fence to the road, I have a right to rock the road. The rock was a temporary barrier to show the rest of the people what they got, okay? And then they come out and steal it at gunpoint, which is, I guess, the way the county does business here. Anyway, there's quite a few things that I left out last week. Okay, one thing is, here's the agenda report, the summary report that was issued by you guys. Okay, it says right here, Dean Borgadolin, who's my father in the back that was not here last week at all, got up and said, voiced concern about not being able to pull a building permit to roof him home. Okay, we don't have a home, so we don't need a roofing permit. Okay, this right here is very misconstrued according to what I came up and stated. What I stated was that my children have not had a home for 3 years. We've lived in a tent for 3 years. Okay, my children, there's a lot of things I forgot to tell you. Okay, we have to walk 100 yards to a shower. Okay, when it's 2 feet of snow, we still have to walk 100 yards. My kids get out with their teeth chattering. When we wake up at 5 in the morning, you see your breath like a bull out in the doggone middle of the pasture in Montana, because that's how cold it is. Okay, when it's 105 out, it's 110 to 15 in that trailer, in that tent, because it's a metal steel roof. Okay, if we can't get our facts right here, and I spent $30,000 on litigation, and they just called up and said that if you come sign an affidavit, we'll give you your rocks back? What? That's called bribery, okay? Due process of the law is done through a courtroom, not through this room or through your guys' offices, okay? If you guys are lawyers, that's great. But let's see it on paper. Nobody wants to issue me nothing on paper.
I had an inquiry from a gentleman
Right.
who asked how you could get your rock back. And
Right.
where it was. I found out
if
where
I
it
go
was,
sign an affidavit, I get it back.
Called the Public Works Department. My suggestion to you is if you want your rock back and you want to know what the rules governing placement, you should call the Public Works Department.
I don't want the rock back. I want to litigate.
All right, well, that's your right as well.
Preliminary injunction. Do I have to come here to get that right?
I know you've been in court with your neighbors for some time, and maybe you'd like to continue that. I'm trying to resolve the issue.
We tried, as far as you're talking about the board of directors and the people that are involved in all this stuff, we tried to summons them to court. None of them showed up. We were going to try and hash this out at the time.
Sir, that's well outside the domain of this board. All I tried to do was find out where your rock was and how you can get it back. If you'd like to do that, I would contact the
If I got to
public.
sign an affidavit to get it back, that's called bribery. I don't get bribed.
I'm just sure there's a way to do this without more legal action.
No, I'm sure litigation is about the only way I'm going to get out of this.
Your choice.
Here's a picture of them stealing the rocks. Would you guys like to see that? Or do you?
Sure. We'll receive any information you'd like to present.
Here's a whole group of pictures. You guys can all take a peek at them. I'll pick them up in 20 minutes. You guys have some time to look at them. But this is how business is done in Calaveras County, under the color of law, and I don't know why you'd use a sheriff to commit a felony. I think that's kind of an odd deal. But evidently the sheriffs get left out in the cold just like the public does.
Steve.
Yes, I believe we have the Public Works Director in the room, and maybe he can shed some light on the situation.
Good morning. Mike Miller, Public Works Director. The incident that's being referred to is on Struckman Road. We went out to Struckman Road the day after this case was settled in court, I believe, or the second day after. We were responding to complaint that rocks were being placed immediately adjacent to the roadway. I sent the deputy director out and the road superintendent. I told him to inspect the roadway and remove any rock that would impede emergency vehicles from passing another vehicle on that road if it was disabled. They went out there with the sheriff's officer because they've been directed in the past not to go out there without a sheriff's officer. The sheriff's officer stood by while they removed rocks that were immediately adjacent from the roadway to make sure that if somebody was coming out that road as emergency traffic was going in, they could pass. We took the rocks to our yard because we didn't want to come back out the next day and have them replaced in the same place and have to expend labor and equipment to do it again. When the staff took the rocks to the yard, we asked that they get a signed agreement from the property owner that they would not replace the rocks in the same place before they were returned to them. That's where we left it.
Let me add to that real quick. Okay. First of all, I got a court order.
Would this be a good moment to actually work this thing out? It seems like we've got the people in the room who could handle that in a civilized and decent manner. If you want your rock back,
can I explain something real quick?
To talk to.
All my neighbors have their own easements, okay? And this county was supposed to, when they developed their property, was supposed to have them develop them easements. It's not my duty to give these guys an in and out, okay? Matter of fact, I've spent thousands of dollars to fight this. And if these guys think that they're going to get anything more, they're not, okay? The road is 10.5 feet wide. You cannot pass on it. You never will be able to, okay? I have a right to fence, which I'm going to start doing. If they come up and peel my fence out, there's going to be a fight. And I got a court order on that. And I went to the Public Works this morning and gave them a copy of this court order so maybe they can learn how to read and see under the understanding of what their ramifications and where their parameters are. Because if they're going to go against the judge, then we all got to go back to court, which we're going to do anyway.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Downham.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing that was said. The sheriff and the sheriff deputies do not have the ability, the authority, or the expertise to make judgments on what is or is not a county road, on easements, on property lines. We go to these things to preserve the peace, and we enforce court orders or judgments. So if one of our deputies indicated that that was or was not a county road, or it was or was not private property, we don't do that.
But Sheriff Downham, my understanding was your officers were there because public employees had been threatened and they needed escort or felt that that was appropriate.
We certainly do that certainly for the road department and for citizens in general to stand by to preserve the peace, to make sure that there is no violence.
How come when the county and sheriff's department...
Sir, you do not have the floor.
ran away when I tried to talk?
Well, yes.
My name is Jack Gregg, owner of JG Trucking. I'm the one that hauls these dangerous rocks.
Yes.
I've been up on this hill, Struckman Road, since '52. My business started in '67, '68 up there. Since this squabble started over this road, I've had the county on my tail about my equipment. So it's been being removed. But the county can't approach us and tell us how they acquired the right to maintain this road and open it up to the public. It's always been a private road. It's on my deed as my land. And how the county can step in and just start giving orders. I place signs down at the foot of Struckman Road and Railroad Flat Road, advised by the sheriff advising me that I needed signs to be put up to keep people off my property because of theft. I put these signs up. 3 days later, the county steps in with a backhoe and a truck and rips them all out and hauls them down to the county yard. So I go down there and I ask them why. They don't give me a specific answer. They just said that they were ordered to take them. So they gave me the signs back. I went back up, I put them back up, and they're there to this day. But they cost me time and money. They tore up my signs, made me go down there and pick them back up and bring them back up and repost them. Now, I don't know how this county works, but I mean, when you own something, they just don't walk onto your property and start taking things and don't give you no answers. It's not right. And like I said, I've been in business up there all these years. They slapped me with a $10,000 fine for having my equipment on this land. And I approached the county. I bought the property down below me that used to belong to the shoemates. I was in the process of cleaning it up, grading it, and putting in a garden mart to sell material to people that wanted it. The county stopped me from that. And to this day, it's been 2 years. The county's had $2,300 of my money for recoding or rezoning the land, and they won't give me an answer when it's going to get done. The property's been cleaned up, but they're riding on my money. And I've done everything I can to please this county, but it seems like every time I turn around, they're on my land, they're slapping me with a complaint or a fine. So if I could get an answer out of somebody on how this county works, and I can kiss some more butt, maybe, and get them off my ass.
I'm going to really, at this point, ask the people in this audience to think about our choice of words.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
The way that we do business. There's a lot of anger and a lot of people with genuine concerns in the room. But today, we're going to try to handle this in a way that is respectful of all ears and all people.
Well, you know, I've had stuff on my land for sale, and I'm trying to clean it up. They made me move it all. I couldn't advertise it. I couldn't put it down there. I've had concrete pipe that I sell to the public for culverts for whatever reason. They tell me it's got to be removed. The next day, the county steps in. The guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, can I buy some of that pipe?" He's the man that was there telling me to get it off the land, but then he wants to turn around and buy it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know? So, I mean, it's like everything I have. You know, I'm trying to get out of the business. I'm trying to cut back on work. I figured by putting in a garden mart, I'm serving the county. People want the material. And I want to cut down on killing myself, but I can't seem to get the county to give me the right. If I move a shovel of dirt, they slap me with a red tag. And I mean, that dirt is selling like crazy. It's unbelievable to live in the mountains, but everybody wants dirt. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Would anybody else like to address the board under items, public comment, items not on the agenda?
Good morning, Shirley Ryan, County Administrative Office. I just wanted to let the board know that in preparation for the jail bond issuance on this Thursday, on July 9th, the County Administrative Office the auditor controller, treasurer tax collector, and government financial strategies had a conference call with Standard & Poor's to get our rating for the jail bond issuance, and I'm happy to report that it was a AA-. And that's a very good rating for the issuance of the jail bond, and that rating caused our COP rating to go from upward from an A to an A+.
Excellent. Thank you. Good news.
Diane Keene. You have to bear with me. I walked out of the house without my reading glasses. I was before you here in January talking about the progress report for the housing element. There was one that was due April 1st, 2007, and we did not do it. And I said that the next one was due April 1st, 2008. This is per government code 65400, small a 2, large b. It's a report that's mandated by law. It's not an option, and the state doesn't send out reminder reports. It sounds, since we haven't done our report, that somehow the county thinks it's above the law. It's not following what is in the law. I double-checked. In 2000, we didn't. The reason I was told we didn't file the 2007 report is because we were too busy working on the general plan. The 2008 report, I was at the planning department April 4th, and I directly asked Bob Selman, how are we doing on our progress report? And the reply was, he didn't know that he had to have it approved by the Board of Supervisors. This is now July, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't ever remember seeing it on your agenda to be approved. So I called Housing and Community Development. I said, have you got the April 1st, 2008 report? And they said, no, they have not got it. So the thing is, we're back. When I was here in January, I guess none of you thought it was that serious to check up on as to why these reports are not being done. Like I said, they are mandated by law. It's not an option. So why is this county not following the law? Like I said, we're still back to square one. Is now, whose job is it to do this, to file this report? Is anybody going to check on it? Does anybody want to volunteer? No? It's okay.
I'll check on it.
Good. And give us a report back, because Housing and Community Development is very concerned, and the fact that in my discussions with them is that we are not following our housing element. And when you get around to 2009, they are not going to approve it as readily as they did in the past. And I know there's a lot of people here, it's just a coincidence. I wasn't going to say this, but since there are a lot of block grant money people here, they might be interested to know that come 2009, when maybe the state doesn't easily approve our housing element as the fact that they did in the past, you're not going to get block grant money. Block grant money hinges on an approved housing element. It's going to be interesting in 2009. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Mulvaney. I live in Murphy's. I'm a member of, or director of the Calaveras County Business. I'm sorry. Listening to all this argument this morning has gotten me confused. And yet to do this all day. I'm director of the Calaveras County Taxpayers Association. They had a presentation for this morning, but after learned of the recent resignation and so forth, kind of reduce it to one thing. Reading the grand jury's report, with the papers and everything, I thought, well, just exactly what are the duties, responsibilities, and limitations of supervisors in a general law county like Calaveras? And after a few hours on the internet and asking around, all I got was confused. And what I'm wondering is, could county council give us a report, a definition of exactly what is expected of our supervisors in Calaveras County, and make that available to the press?
Right now?
or do you want to go there? And since you're going to be, the second item, brief, is that since you're going to be looking for a new department head, I would strongly suggest that you assure that applicants understand that we're looking for someone with at least a modicum of sympathy for property rights and for the hassles that a property owner goes through in order to get a permit to do almost anything with his property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chuck Cantoni. I'm president of the Wallace Community Services Board of Directors. I watched a video of the public comment section from last week's meeting where Wallace was discussed and the initiative petition to reduce water and sewer rates. I sent in a letter to you, and I'm not sure if you've got it. I have additional copies here.
It's actually already up here.
Okay,
we got
very
it
good.
This morning.
So I just wanted to comment that we were absent last week because that was a public comment session. We had no idea that was going to be discussed. The petition, which was to lower water and sewer rates dramatically, was refused or was not put on the ballot by the Board of Directors for legal reasons, and that was on the advice of our legal counsel. We had the council look through the initiative and the ordinance that was backing it, and they found 5 different areas where the ordinance was not legal. So we had a very difficult choice to make. Do you let an initiative go on a ballot that contains illegal clauses? Our lawyer referred to the Bighorn Desert View case, which was decided by the Supreme Court in 2006. And this was a case very similar to ours where the proponent had put in an initiative to lower water and sewer rates, but had put a clause in the initiative, in the ordinance that they'd suggested, that the board of the agency could not then readjust those rates. And the Supreme Court found that that was not legal, that you can't have an initiative overturn another law. And I'd like to read to you what they said, which is that we've concluded that under Section 3 of the California Article of the Constitution, local voters by initiative may reduce the public agency's water and other delivery charges, but that does not, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, that does not authorize an initiative to impose a requirement of voter pre-approval for future rate increases. In other words, you can lower the rates, but you can't sit there and take away the right of the board to either put in new rates or to raise the rates in the future. And that's what this ordinance specified for a period of 4 years. And that is one of the key points, and in fact, the key point, that it was judged to be illegal. It presents a dilemma because the court went on to say that, in other words, by exercising initiative power, voters may decrease a public water agency's fees and charges for water service, but the agency's governing board may then raise or other fees or impose new fees without prior voter approval. Although this power-sharing arrangement has the potential for conflict, we must presume both sides will act reasonably and in good faith. So they left us with a dilemma. You can put through an initiative to lower the rates, and the board can turn right around and raise the rates back up again. But the point is that the initiative and the ordinance as it was written is illegal. It had further what I think was a very important clause, which said that if there was any legal action with respect to that initiative, that if it passed, that the district would be responsible for everyone's legal fees, both sides. So that's a blank check. You pass an ordinance, and any resident can come up and say, I don't like your water fees. I'm going to sue. And it's a free ride. The ordinance would say that the district covers all legal costs. We can't afford that. Our annual budget for expenses is about $200,000 a year. You put in $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a legal case, the budget's completely out of whack, and pretty soon you have a district that is in bankruptcy. So that's the reasoning that our legal counsel used in coming to the conclusion that it should not go before the voters. In the Supreme Court decision, the last paragraph said that we have concluded that this initiative is invalid insofar that it seeks to require voter approval before the agency's government board may increase water service charges and so on. When a significant part of a proposed initiative measure is invalid, the measure may not be submitted to the voters. What can we do? It's really pretty simple. We had another alternative. We could have let it go forward, and then we could have gone to court because it's an illegal initiative or an illegal ordinance at that point in time if it had been approved. Then we're wasting ratepayers' money. We're spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to go through a court proceeding to get the thing overturned after we let it go to a vote. And so that's our reasoning for saying it's not a valid initiative. It's much like trying to launch an initiative that, say, Supervisor Walensky, because of the budget situation in Calaveras County, could rob a bank once a month. And if he gets caught, the supervisors will pick up the charge for defending him. I mean, it's the law, and the law that Mr. Howland relied on with respect to the initiative, Proposition 218, doesn't specify what happens when someone proposes an illegal initiative. And we go to the Supreme Court ruling, and that's why we did it. I want to let you know that. I think we acted correctly. I would add, we've been planning since early spring to re-examine water and sewer rates, in part because we've got to come up with a water shortage contingency plan, and we've got to change our rates so that they encourage more conservation. We're starting that process with the first workshop involving the public and the board tomorrow evening. That's going to go on this summer. I expect by the end of summer we'll have readjusted rates, not to the drastic extent that they were talking about, but rates that I hope the public will understand. So thank you.
It'd be nice to see another agency drawing crowds the way we are.
Mr. Chair, may I just comment on this issue? It was reported that the district's council persuaded my office and the county clerk to keep this issue off the ballot, and I wanted to make the point that that is not the case. The election code requires that for this item to be placed on the ballot, the Wallace District Board has to make a resolution and direct the county clerk, the elections official, to place it on the ballot. That did not happen under the elections code, and that's the only reason why it wasn't placed on the ballot, to my knowledge. It had nothing to do with the merits that the gentleman has talked about. My office has taken no position regarding the merits of the item. It's just that they did, for whatever reason, they did not direct that it be placed on the ballot. So.
I understand that, and thank you for clarifying it.
I agree with that 100%. The election department did their work, and it worked out well. They told us that it qualified signature-wise. We went back and said we weren't going to approve it. We gave them the legal letter saying why, and that part worked. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. In order to sort of keep some cohesion here, is there anybody else here in the room who wishes to speak on the Wallace Lake Estates issue? Okay, please step forward and state your name. Yes, I would like to remind everybody that we're trying to keep it to 5 minutes each.
My name is Pat Bailey. I'm here to speak of a great loss this week, a loss of faith in the system. I am from Wallace, so that should define my problem. I know you are familiar with this recent event, but a petition was circulated and signed by a large majority of Wallace residents to place on the November ballot an initiative to reduce our water rates in Wallace Lake Estates. We knew of no other way to get the board of our small water district to recognize that they were running amok with the spending of ratepayer funds, not to mention that there is a continuing depletion of reserve finances. The board was given two choices: accept and enact the initiative or let it go to ballot. We thought we had a chance. But the attorney, our attorney for our district, chose door number 3, wrote a brief citing the Bighorn case that went to court, did call county council, and the initiative committee was sent a letter saying petition denied. To me, it seemed democracy denied. Last week, the head of the committee for the petition came to appeal here. You have spent some time wrestling with this situation, but now have apparently decided that a majority of ratepayers with one voice does not count as much as the WCSD Board of 5 with one attorney, as 122 residents speak. Seems to me democracy denied again, bluffed by a couple of lawyers. Hence my loss of faith in the system. The WCSD board has now called a special meeting for tomorrow night to discuss the raising of water rates yet again. Not satisfied with another $10 raise July 1st for water and sewer, 21 days later, they are pushing for one of the issues that would make a $29 a month rate raise just for water. They feel perfectly justified in calling for another vote increase and to raise the rates, since they now feel they are bulletproof. One suggestion put to us was to set up a recall, but we are a small community. We live next door to some of these people, and it was never our intention to pit neighbor against neighbor. We are seeking democracy, and it seems as though it has been denied. Which brings me to problem number 2. The pro-big growth people in this county have continued to label us as negative for asking for careful growth, and more importantly to me in Wallace, a quality growth. I have spoken to you and the Planning Commission about the favored builder in our gates who has caused so much damage to our district and who incidentally is now in bankruptcy. And worst of all, our board is now trying to extend or make a new will-serve letter with this same builder and associates. Will you replace Stephanie Moreno with someone who will, at the very least, listen to concerns of residents when they come to document the loss of oaks, habitat, damaged roads and trails, steep driveways, and schlock houses that have been built in our area? or is it going to be growth at any cost? I said once I never expected to be the voice of conscience for the county when I was past 70. Now I'm some more past 70 and have decided to fight the good fight. My faith has taken a hit, but my resolve is all the stronger for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to correct the record if I could.
All right,
with
but you've
respect to
already had 5 minutes on the topic, so I'd ask you to please summarize.
I just have one comment to make. We circulated material in advance of the meeting for this rate discussion. It has an example of ways to set rates. It has no suggestion that rates will be increased again. Mrs. Bailey is misreading the material. This is a wide open issue as to whether the rates will be increased or decreased.
I wish you all luck in your deliberations down there. Anybody else wish to speak on an item not on the agenda?
Good morning. Mike Borean. Still got a great pen. Got a couple things to give first. I did the death ride 2 weeks ago. I'm in Hermit Valley. Maria Calloway was there in an orange t-shirt as one of the volunteers, so thanks, Maria. Appreciate it. We were all a little tired, so we were kind of blurry at that time. Also make a quick generalization about the public comments here. I'm sure it's a lot of work. It's discomforting. You agree, you disagree, but to have the civic-minded people of our county, my county fellow citizens here coming up and being part of this government is kind of refreshing. I don't agree with everybody, but the fact that they're here is a good thing. My main comment here is you guys had a tough week last week. And I want to congratulate you on coming to a decision. We appreciate the fact that I'm sure it was through a lot of turmoil, a lot of arguments. I can imagine. I wasn't a fly on the wall, but I would have been interested in being one. But you came to a very difficult decision, but you came to a decision nonetheless. I thank you personally. My peers thank you for that. In the whole process the last 2 years, everybody involved has been damaged on this. You, the board, have lost credibility. The CDA director, I'm sure personally, has suffered damage on this. The employees of the building department and the planning department have suffered, and the public has suffered. In public, I mean builders, homeowners, future citizens of this county. That, however, is water under the bridge. It's dark polluted water, but it's gone nonetheless. Where do we go from here? And that's what's important. We, and emphasize we, have a lot of work to do. I'm going to take the liberty of offering the time and work effort of myself and my peers to help provide solutions for the dilemma we've been faced with the last couple of years. Our goals would be to create a spirit of public service in the CDA and to find and provide experienced, technically competent leadership in building and planning. Again, we appreciate your efforts. The difficulty of it was not lost on us. And that's it, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further public comments on items not on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to jump in here for a second. I know we were kind of going along here, but there was a situation that developed in Copperopolis last week that precipitated an email to me from a young father of a family down there, and his name is Nick Salem. It concerns the prisoner, the felon that walked away from the Sierra Conservation Center. And if I can just read this quickly, Nick said, is there a way that Copperopolis could be funded money for a siren that will alert the town when prison breaks happen in Jamestown? When I first saw that, I thought that was a little, maybe a little stretch, and then I started thinking about it, that we actually have a siren of sorts in the form of our reverse 911 system. And he goes on to say, or maybe a phone call or emergency text message to Copperopolis citizens. This is the second prison break in the last 2 months. I spoke with Calaveras Sheriff Dispatch Officer, and she stated that they don't have to notify a public, being that the prison is located in another county. I disagree. Isn't there some sort of Department of Homeland Security funds that are given to the county to provide emergency alert systems of this for this type of incident? And I don't want to diminish the impact that things like this have on our community. I guess the good part of having a prison nearby is that we have a lot of citizens in our town that work there, and it is a large source of revenue for our county as well as Tuolumne County. But the bad part is that occasionally we have these prisoners that walk away. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this up and see if the sheriff can explain to us why we didn't have the emergency reverse 911 system in place on this issue.
Yeah, I've had discussions with Warden Clay over at the prison. First of all, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation is a law enforcement agency. When they have an emergency, they are very aware of the resources we have and that we can provide and that are at their disposal. When I talked to Warden Clay, it became apparent that some of the protocols that are in place at the prison, some of the processes for citizen and community and other agency notifications some of those processes weren't followed. The warden tells me that process, they certainly will be looking at it, and it will be followed significantly better in the future. But one thing that we have to understand, and I don't know if you gave me the exact wording that the dispatcher used, and if that was the exact wording, that was probably an inappropriate way to state something. But when a law enforcement agency has an active investigation going, whether it's California Highway Patrol or CAL FIRE or Parole or CDCR, I cannot and we cannot make assumptions concerning that investigation and put anything out without them at the table. The warden is aware the reverse 911 system is available. He knows what he needs to do to activate it, and all he has to do to activate it is send us an email with the verbiage that needs to be put out, and it will be activated. I cannot get into a position where I'm making assumptions about somebody else's investigation. If I try to put that information out, I can undo everything they've accomplished in their investigation, and I can put people in a position that we may not want them in. So, but the warden is aware what resources Calaveras County has available. There was just some glitches in this particular incident. The warden assures me that those things will be addressed, but it's not an unreasonable idea or thought or suggestion to suggest that reverse 911 system would be an absolute appropriate thing to advise that community. But it has to be at the request of the other law enforcement agency. I mean, we can prod them, give them suggestions, but I'm not going to make up what they need to be put out.
Thank you. This creates a little bit of a dilemma for me. I mean, I represent the citizens that live in that community that's in close proximity to this prison, and what you're telling me is that when there is a jailbreak, if you want to call it that the agency over there is the sole decider, or they have sole discretion about whether they're going to notify the community? Is that
Russ, they have a process in place to notify the community, and they have a protocol in place that, when followed, we will assist them in notifying the community. I don't know what information they're working on. I don't know I have no clue until they tell me. But I have total 100% faith that CDCR is not going to intentionally endanger that community if information about an escapee can be provided. I'm telling you that this particular incident was not handled very well. And I've been assured that future incidents will be handled much better. So.
Okay, I don't know whether there's any other comments on this. There's one, I think.
Mr. Chairman, in my real life, I'm Jack Cox. I'm president of the Communications Institute based in Los Angeles, California. We are specialized in the area of communications between government and the public, working with the national news media, with government agencies, and I'm also the former chief of staff to a U.S. congressman. I would say that right now there's a credibility problem between government and the public, and it all comes down to communications. In all due respect to the sheriff, there were stories on the internet relative to this particular escaped individual. What the government can do is either sit back and not say anything and let rumors and all sorts of things happen, or it can be proactive. And I think in this day and age, with the age of the internet and the diminished role that local newspapers and radio and television play, particularly in counties like this, rural counties, it's incumbent upon this county to take a complete look at the ability to use a reverse 911 technology. I would point out to you that every major United States corporation uses telephones to basically communicate earnings notices and everything else. So the telephone, interesting enough, despite Alexander Graham Bell dying many, many years ago, the telephone has become a major system of communications in the United States. I remember the advent of the internet in 1994, 1995, there was a lot of doomsayers saying it really wasn't an effective device of communications, blah, blah, blah. But obviously it has been. I think the county needs to, I know a few years ago there was a general plan meeting in Copperopolis, and I received a notification over the telephone from Russ about that meeting. And I think that the county ought to look at this on two levels. One, on quick response. How do you deal and help the public understand something? If it's a prison break, a natural disaster, a road closure, or whatever, you can use this technology effectively. Secondly, proactively to engage the public more actively in what's going on in the county, this technology can be used as well. I understand somebody has said, well, you can't do it because the FCC would conflict with that. Well, that FCC ruling has only to do with basically telemarketing. So there is no legal reason why the county cannot use this technology effectively to communicate to the public. I would also say, I would urge you to work with, I think appropriately what the sheriff had to say, working with state agencies as well as not only the prison, but what about Caltrans and road closures and other problems. I think during bad weather times, I think you can absolutely use this technology effectively, and I would urge the county to reconsider its previous decision not to use it. And to, in this day and age, we need to communicate more effectively with citizens. You heard it this morning, and why not use technology to achieve that? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to make the board aware that I would be suggesting that we bring this back as an action item at a future meeting so that the board takes some initiative in getting proactive in this establishment of a protocol that we would expect that the Sierra Conservation Center would observe in these instances. And a second part of that discussion would be to revisit whether or not there is, in fact, a prohibition in the FCC ruling that prevents us from making community-based announcements that was used, I think, fairly effectively at 3 times prior to the sheriff suggesting that it was not legal. We've had a number of town hall meetings for the purpose of discussing the Copperopolis community plan since that methodology was put on the shelf. and the attendance has not been satisfactory. We had tremendous participation when we did make those announcements. As a matter of fact, if you recall, I mentioned that my asking the people that were there, of the 80 or so people that were in the room, how many of you heard the announcement? And virtually all of them raised their hand, and they were there exclusively because of that. I think that we're running the risk of not engaging our people in the process, and we've all seen fairly recently how much problem that can produce for us. So anyway, that concludes my comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe we are at the conclusion of public comment, and we will move now to item number...
I have a comment I'd like to make, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Okay.
And it concerns the action of the board. It's a consequence of the closed session that was announced by the chair here this morning. I did vote no on that action. Obviously, I did not vote no with the intent of rejecting the letter of resignation. I voted no because I am very strongly opposed to the terms and conditions that are associated with that letter. Quite frankly, I found the terms and conditions to be unconscionable and offensive, and I think when the public becomes aware of those terms and conditions, the public will feel likewise. So I just want to be very clear what my vote stood for when I made it last Friday evening. Secondly, given the documents, et cetera, concerned, I think the board should instruct County Council to release all documents associated with that settlement that are allowed under the law to be released. I don't believe there are any documents in that settlement, quite frankly, that are not eligible for release. I hope the board does not do what it did in the Ray Waller instance, where it basically refused to release information absent a Public Records Act or a Freedom of Information Act or a threat to go to court, and then basically saying, well, it wasn't worded just right, and so we're not going to release something until it gets worded just right. I don't think it's appropriate in that instance. I don't think it's appropriate in this instance to stonewall the citizenry in the release of this information. I think associated with this settlement, all information should be released. To basically say, well, the public has a right, but we're not going to do it now, and we're going to force, the media or somebody to do a Public Records Act or a Freedom of Information Act, in my opinion, is wrong. I think that the citizens have a right to know, and what they have a right to access and to know should be released along with the announcement of the acceptance of the resignation letter. And so with that, I would ask for a polling of the board this morning to instruct County Council to release all documents that are legally permissible to be released, and to release them today. And I would ask for a polling of the board to council to that end.
May I respectfully request that the board not do that? The public records request is not difficult to make. There are many people who know how to make it. And there are some benefits to responding to a public records request that otherwise you just puts a burden on my office to decide what would be relevant and what should be released. And we're just not in the position to do that. So I respectfully request that the board not direct me to do that.
Okay, I will still ask for a polling, and if the board wants to not direct it, then let them so indicate.
Well, I believe you're asking for the board to take action on an item not agendized.
No, it's just a polling to release information. I don't think that's particularly an action.
That would be an action, I believe. I'd ask for...
Probably the more important point I should have made. It's really not a properly agendized action item. I suspect we'll have the request before it gets on the agenda.
Yes, I believe there will be a method of release and that will happen shortly.
Well, I will just say that I hope this doesn't happen. The follow-through is not as was done in the last case, where I think there was a stonewalling on the part of the board in releasing information and the amount of information, because it was based technically on what was asked, when the party doesn't really know what to ask because they weren't in the closed session. So that's my feeling on it. I would also just say that I was very disappointed with staff recommendations, both from the administrative office and from county council, concerning the terms and conditions. Two other quick points. I think some counseling needs to be provided to the employees in that department. I think it's been a very traumatic experience. It's my understanding we're supposed to have the Davis team building crew come back. I think that should go forward. I think that should basically go forward with the current management that is in place within the two respective departments, and if some professional outside counseling along with the team building group from UC Davis is appropriate, I am supportive of providing that service to the employees. Lastly, from my conversations with contractors, there's been a fair amount of construction that's taken place without appropriate permits, because people became so frustrated in not being able to get their projects processed. And I don't mean building a new house, I mean remodels and deck additions and sort of smaller things where contractors finally just threw up their hands and did the work. I think it would be appropriate for the board to entertain some type of amnesty program that would bring those people in, allow them to pay their fees, process their remodels and their deck additions, et cetera, and bring them into a position of conformity as far as the rules and regulations are concerned with the department. That completes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Tryon.
I also have
Supervisor Callaway.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have...
Pull your mic up.
Pardon?
You need to pull your mic up.
I also have some comments to make. As Mr. Boyan said, we need to somewhat start the healing process. I'm not sure the board nor the public yet knows what that looks like. But I have to give some clarification to some issues that are out there. A year ago, I also joined Supervisor Tryon in the investigative inquiry to the grand jury. Supervisor Tryon and I abide by the grand jury report. We consider the matter closed, and understanding where Mr. Tryon says, believe that we would like to move on. Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, I'll venture one. Most of you have been either entertained or repulsed by the reports and press and the spectacle of the last few weeks regarding the grand jury report, the CDA, state of government in Calaveras County. The last several board meetings have featured a level of invective and, vitriol that is really unusual for this rural county. We have differences of opinion. We have different strategies. We have different takes. In fact, we seem to have very different versions of fact. Sometimes that's because we listen to different sources of information and we come to believe things quite deeply, and we are passionate about our county. The people you've elected here are all passionate about trying to make this a better place. The process that we've been involved in, though, is I'm not sure that we are particularly artistic in the way we handle our disagreements. I think that that is true and has been well noted by letters to the editor and people just commenting in general. But I'd also like to say that there is a definite interplay between this board and the community. This is the closest government gets to the citizens. And it strikes me that the tone set by us often affects the tone that we receive. But no less so, the tone set by the public often is reflected in board interactions as well. We have a need to heal the divisions that have taken place over the inartful process of change and evolution in our planning and development process. There's community consensus on the desire to have a healthy economy. There is not yet, I would say, full community consensus on what a good plan for our future might be, or how to accomplish that, or what the relationship between staff, leadership, and public might best be. But it strikes me that if we have one lesson from this last few weeks, it might be to see whether we can check at the door the personal vilification or the politics of personal destruction, regardless of what direction it goes in. And that we get back to the issues of solving the genuine problems that will not go away with one person, will not go away with one alteration of a county structure, but ultimately must be faced by us all, and we will do a lot better in finding results if we try to communicate effectively with one another without denigrating either the process or the individuals involved in really trying to address these issues, even when we have disagreements, however strong. That's all I have to say on the subject.
Excuse me, can the public put some input on what Trilon was trying to do instead of listening to the county council? Can we all raise our hand about
Sir, we have closed public comments. We just had a board discussion. We're getting ready to move to a long-awaited hearing on this.
Anybody in the public should raise their hands. Feel that Stephanie Marino's process should be brought forward.
I'm not going to engage this. We have advice from County Council. We have also been told that there is a process by which this will be accomplished. You will have these documents through a proper legal process, and that will happen timely. That's what I got from this discussion.
I'd ask for a 5-minute recess.
One more public comment on that?
I'm really asking that we move. We've got a big issue coming up, as you know. We're going to take a quick 5-minute recess.
15 seconds.
Come back. We are going to be here. We're going to be here a long time. We have 2 lengthy public hearings. There are scores of people here to speak to them. We're going to try to hear every voice. In order to settle ourselves, we're going to take 5 minutes and come back to you to hear the Mountain Ranch Road contract and safety improvement issue. And then we'll get to Vista del Lago, which I understand some of you are here for too. Claudino, calling for Supervisor Claudino. Hey, Bill. No, I thought I told you. I'll talk closer to the mic.
That was a request from several people.
Yes. We've been informed that it's kind of hard to hear us, so we'll pull the mics a little closer today. We now turn our attention to item 14. This is discussion and possible action regarding a resolution authorizing a professional agreement with SOMAS for professional engineering services associated with Mountain Ranch Road safety improvement projects. I understand there are a number of people here that wish to speak on the topic, and I'd like to go over the order of presentation. We will start with an outline of the project and the process from the Public Works Department. We'll then move it to public comment and ask that everybody speak who wishes to. By the way, could I see a show of hands of people who wish to speak on this issue? Just so. Okay, it's going to be a live one. We will. I will ask then. We'll move right after the presentation to public comment. Move it back to the board for questions. Actually, after public comment, there will be any questions that came up will be answered by staff. The board will then have an opportunity to ask any questions, and finally, statements and vote. I am very interested in some level of efficiency here, so I would ask that people try not to repeat themselves, or for that matter, overly repeat things other people have said. Let's try to make the key points, make sure that all matters that need to be considered by the board for this are put forward. But we do have another group of people, and I'll ask for a show of hands on the Vista del Lago project. Are there people yet in the room for that? Yes. So we have a number of people waiting very patiently for this item, which should have started at 9:10. And the Vista del Lago was to happen actually, well, it was supposed to be going on by now. So at any rate, just for courtesy purposes, let's see if we can speak even sometimes under the 5-minute allotment. Take it away, Public Works. Please introduce yourself and your topic.
Mike Miller, Director of Public Works. To my left is Jonathan Mitchell, the Senior Engineer in charge of our Capital Projects section, and he'll be responding to the project-specific questions.
Okay, I'd like to start with just a brief overview of the project.
Yes, could you pull your mic a little closer? It's hard for people in back to hear.
Okay, I'd like to start with just a brief overview of the project. I'm going to read this. Public Works was requested to attend a Mountain Ranch community meeting held at Mountain Ranch Town Hall in December of 2006. At this meeting, the Mountain Ranch community voiced their concerns for the safety of Mountain Ranch Road, and a variety of improvements were requested, including, but not limited to, improved sight distance, provide safety passing opportunities, post icy condition advisory signs, install centerline rumble strips, add or widen shoulders, increased enforcement. As a function of this meeting and subsequent research, we pursued funding through the Federal High Risk Rural Road Program, H.R. 3, to provide funding for projects that would make improvements to Mountain Ranch Road in terms of safety to the traveling public. In April of 2007, we were notified by Caltrans that our H.R. 3 grant applications were funded, and since that time we have been actively moving forward with these two safety improvement projects. Beginning with an advertised public meeting in June of 2007, we have made efforts to incorporate public input into the project planning. Although the majority of Mountain Ranch community residents have expressed their support for these safety projects, the adjacent property owners to the turnout location have maintained opposition. The adjacent property owners submitted a petition to Caltrans opposing the construction of a tail-to-tail turnout in the proposed project area above Michael Road intersection on Mountain Ranch Road. Due to this opposition, the state requested the verification of the statewide integrated traffic reporting system collision data submitted in the grant application. Public Works subsequently submitted a verification of the SWITR's data to the State Safety Program Coordinator. The data revealed that there was a higher occurrence of accidents when all data was assessed in conformance with the grant application instructions. After completing this second review, Caltrans upheld their original recommendation to fund these safety improvement projects. Recommendations. Based on our engineering review and in agreement with the state's safety coordinator, we believe that these projects will improve the safety of the traveling public upon Mountain Ranch Road. By moving forward with the design phase of these projects at this time, we're making our best effort to facilitate the construction of these safety improvements prior to cessation of the grant funding for these applications. We also have supporting traffic engineering studies that were conducted. They indicate the impact of the implementation of turnouts as well as shoulders as a reduction in collisions as well as fatalities. And I have this document that I read to you today available for public distribution as well as for the board.
Okay, you're suggesting that the evidence from studies show that these turnouts used in other similarly situated places have had a statistical reduction in accidents and fatalities? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's correct, Steve. Specifically, the NCHRRP Report 440 summarizes internally. There's actually a table given indicating that the use of turnouts in a similarly engineered environment decreased the total collisions by 30% and also resulted in a 40% decrease in the fatal and injury-related collisions.
All right. This study was. These are studies provided by what agency?
This is. Let me cite this. This is Fitzpatrick, KK Balk, D.W. Harwood, I.B. Anderson. This is an NCHRP report for accident mitigation of congestion of rural two-lane highways. And this was Transportation Resource Board of the National Academies.
Thank you. Mike, do you have anything to add to this report before we open to public comment? No. Okay, and now the level of civic engagement and participation in the town of Mountain Ranch will become evident.
Good morning. My name is Ron Mobley, and I was working with some of the people of Mountain Ranch on our community development plan. One of the categories was roads and transportation. We formed a group. 3 people volunteered for it. We solicited inputs from the community. There was quite a few, some on public transportation. But most of the stuff was basically on the road situation. They brought up questions about bots, dots, the raised reflectors on the roads, rumble strips, requested some shoulder work, vegetation clearing because of the trees and live oak, sightline clearing, speed limits, signage, passing lane turnouts, and increased patrols. Some of those were fixed. We got 5 55-mile-an-hour speed limit signs posted up. Vegetation clearing has gone on most of the Mountain Ranch roads in the area. It's an ongoing thing. Shoulder work, some was done. Some needs to be done more. And also increased patrols. We have the sheriff and the highway patrol up there catching some speeders. The bots dots were not viable because of snow removal, and the rumble strips are not viable because we don't have a shoulder to put a rumble strip on. Passing lanes and turnouts was something that was addressed, and also increased signage in the area below Michael Road and between the Michael Road and the Monument, which tends to get frosted and icy in the winter times. The county got the grant money for it and presented it to us as a package. It was $900,000 for a passing lane / turnout and $300,000 for changeable message signs in the icy areas. We had a vote on it. There was a simple majority voted down the pure passing lane, but by 2-to-1 they voted up passing lane / turnouts in the area on Mountain Ranch Road. The county has a right of way in one section where they could easily do this, and so they presented as that. Public Works has gone through 4 revisions to please the property owners who fronted the proposed passing lane. Each time additional objections were raised, Public Works re-engineered the proposal, making it smaller. It started out as 1,200 feet, went to 800, now it gets down to 600. And while they were doing that, there was also effort to get the whole project killed. Public Works also put a data logger on Mountain Ranch Road because there are allegations of high speed on there. The data logger was vandalized after 24 hours, but the 24 hours of data indicated that most of the traffic was in the 50s. There was not that much speeding going on there. We voted on the project based on the number of people who participated. It was only in the 50s. but they showed up and they voted, so the project should proceed. In the past 30 years, the population of Calaveras County has tripled. I don't see it going down. And in the next 30 years, what's the population going to be? So you have to think about now and the future. We're going to have to put in passing lanes sooner or later. Now it's a lot cheaper than down the road. For example, the the Highway 4 bypass in Angels Camp. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Other speakers on this topic?
Quickly.
I'm just sure there's not that much shyness out there at Mountain Ranch.
This is yours. I have handouts for the board.
Ready to go? Okay. Could you please state your name for the record?
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Sanchez, and I am a citizen and taxpayer of Calaveras County. First and foremost, the people directly involved in this project area are for road improvements and safety improvements on Mountain Ranch Road. We do not want the county to lose the money. We simply want to have it reallocated. After meeting with Public Works 5 times last year, our concerns and recommendations falling on deaf ears, we compiled a 400-signature petition addressing those safety issues to improve road shoulders, curve mitigation, and speed control. We submitted a complaint to Caltrans with our petition. Public Works cannot drown out the voice of the people. This is your copy. Public Works admitted that they only want to spend the money in this half-mile section simply because they own the property, and they want to do a job that can be done quick and easy. Ownership of property and a quick and easy job is not a safety improvement. At all 5 meetings with Public Works, we asked, couldn't the funds be reallocated to put shoulders on the entire length of this 9-mile road, as lack of shoulders, high speed, and curves is the #1 cause for accidents on this road. Public Works stated that they were locked into this half-mile section of road and the funds could not be reallocated. Caltrans has forms to make changes on grant requests. The degree of change, however, may generate a new grant request. Public Works has changed the design significantly twice, but has never deviated from their half-mile section of owning the property. The first meeting with Public Works was in January 2007, where approximately 100 people were in attendance. Road improvements were unanimously favored for shoulder creation and improvements, speed control, curve mitigation, and small uphill pullovers over the entire 9-mile road. An option of a passing lane proposed by Public Works received negative response from the attendees. Not one person voted for a passing lane. Yet, in spite of that negative response, 1 month later, Public Works proceeded with a grant request for a half-mile uphill passing lane. and falsely indicated in the grant, and I'd like you to look at attachment A. It's the highlighted area that says number 1. The selected segment, construction of a passing lane resonated with the residents and generated enthusiasm. That is not true. Public Works also stated in the grant application, and that's number 2 in the highlighted area, that currently no passing opportunities are present along the entire 9-mile-long mountainous road. This also is not true. The project area is the only area on Mountain Ranch Road that is completely surrounded by passing, pull-out, and shoulders. Approximately 1 mile east of the project area, passing is capable in both directions, clearly shown in this picture. In fact, it is the straightest section on this 9-mile road. Less than half a mile west of the project area, large shoulders used for pullouts are located on both sides of the road. This is the downhill side that is approximately 6 to 7 feet wide. It's less than half a mile from the project area. The next picture clearly shows this is the uphill side right across from the road. Right across from that. This is the uphill shoulder. That is extremely wide. The road itself, each lane on Mountain Ranch Road, is 10 feet wide. Trucks and semis use these pullovers all the time for slower traffic. A third false statement in the grant, and it's highlighted with number 3. Based on a review of Switter's fatality data, this rural major collector parallels the national average. However, the half-mile segment of proposed improvement exceeds the national average by an order of magnitude. Switter's is statewide integrated traffic reporting system. This is not a true statement. There were no fatalities in or approximate to the project area. Using Caltrans guideline of 1/10 of a mile, no fatalities occurred. In addition, the grant indicated, and it's marked your number 4, as shown by the attached Switter's data, Table 1, and I'll refer to that shortly. The selected segment is proximate to a locus of historic collisions. This is not true. The data provided in the grant use the undefined term proximate to the project area, and by inference that the data provided in attachment B, I'd like you to refer to attachment B now. This is Table 1 used. That the attachment B is associated with the project area. This 5-year collision report that was submitted to Caltrans from Public Works is the basis for claiming that the project area has a high number of accidents. Using this same chart, we measured the actual accident locations and found that not one of the 10 accidents identified had occurred in the project area. Their actual location is above or below the project area. I would like you to refer to the map here. This map we received from Public Works, and we had it enlarged so that you could clearly see where the project area is. The pink highlighted area is the beginning and the end of the project area. The blue highlighted area are the 5 driveways directly involved in this project area. And the yellow highlighted areas are these 10 accidents that were taken from this table. These accidents, some of them, by the way, are actually off the map. Our map wasn't big enough, so they're up here in the curves or down closer to Michael Road. Thank you. Using Caltrans one more, sorry. Using Caltrans guidelines of 1/10 of a mile, only one of these 10 accidents listed is in 1/10 of a mile. It is number 3. It was a single vehicle, ran off the road. There were no fatalities. Thank you. There are 8 families and 5 driveways located in this project area. This section of road is known as a high-speed area because it's not, because it's not as curvy, that works at home, as the,
You're pretty quick, Jerry.
This section of road is known as a high-speed area because it's not as curvy as the rest of the road, excluding, of course, the section of road where passing is permittable in both directions. Remember, this is only 1 mile east of the project area. Public Works even admitted in a June 2007 public meeting that the average speed on Mountain Ranch Road in several sections is 64 miles per hour. It doesn't make any sense to put a dual passing turnout project in a high-speed area. The 5 driveways affected, the residents in this project witness speeds in excess of this daily. 3 of the driveways have poor visibility. Now the residents will have to deal with 3 lanes of traffic. Now the residents will have to deal with 3 lanes of high-speed traffic when entering and leaving their driveways. All commuters on this road will have to be aware of the higher speeds that will naturally evolve in this area. Because remember, when people are passing another vehicle, they're not on the brake, they're on the accelerator. Increasing speed is not a safety improvement. Public Works keeps reiterating to us that putting this project at this location will decrease the number of accidents that are happening above and below the project area. This is a totally illogical statement. Number 1, they have admitted that the accidents are happening above and below the project area. Number 2, how will it decrease the number of accidents that are happening on the rest of the road? Common sense tells you the road surface you drove on 5 minutes ago has nothing to do with the section of road that you're currently driving on. As taxpayers, this project will not increase safety in this area or any area on Mountain Ranch Road. This accident-free section, which was clearly shown with that map, based on this information submitted, this accident-free section will now become an Indianapolis Speedway. Everybody's going to be jockeying for position, thus becoming more dangerous. Our lives are at risk. We are concerned for our own personal safety in regards to this project. Therefore, all expenditures for this project in this area is a misdirection of county and state funds. And please note that the county is contributing approximately $400,000 of its own money to these projects. After presenting these facts to you, based upon the information that Public Works submitted to Caltrans, looking at the pictures, seeing where the location of accidents really are happening, you, the board, cannot possibly connect yourself with approving this project based upon these false statements submitted on a grant application to obtain state funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this is
Do we have other speakers on this topic?
Yeah, I don't want to get in there and speak now because I've kind of lost credibility.
I believe I think there's many in the room that understand thoroughly, and no credibility lost on this party's part anyway. I've heard that snap before.
Good morning, all. I'm Bob Woods. I live off Mountain Ranch Road, and I am opposed to this project. Steve, I will try and not duplicate things, but I think the last version of Cynthia there, we stumbled by trying to delete, so bear with me. Also, folks, as a retired engineer, I kind of take an engineering approach, so you have to also please bear with me in my approach to this project. Anyhow, as I said, I'm opposed to the project. In that regard, I would like to report on our efforts to collect, compile, and analyze accident data on Mountain Ranch Road. Of particular interest is where and why accidents occur so frequently on this road. Our data has shown that accidents occurred in bunches and in certain sections of the road, while other sections are essentially accident-free. The cause of these accidents were also studied and tabulated, and we'll get to that shortly. I should mention that the data used in this report came from three sources: Switter's, which has already been addressed twice, CHP data files, and the data provided by Public Works to Caltrans. After collecting the data, we then tried to find a way to graphically represent the distribution of accidents along the entire road, along with any related road characteristics. That effort yielded the following graphic, where Mountain Ranch Road naturally partitions into three major sections, each generating its own accident distribution. This representation will be our baseline representation of Mountain Ranch Road and will be especially useful when we show the accident summary chart later on. Again, this is my engineering background coming in. This figure, let me talk to it. This is how we see Mountain Ranch Road. Basically, there are three separate road sections, each with unique accident distribution. The three sections are identified as the lower curve section, running from Calabritas Road to Lucky Jim Road. Then there's the project section, which runs from Lucky Jim to Boo Street. And finally, the upper curve section from Boo Street to Upper Michael. The two speed zones at either end will not enter into our study. So basically, that's the basis that we're going to build on when we present our accident data here shortly. Okay. However, that's fine, Cynthia. However, before presenting the accident statistics, it would be beneficial to the community to first share information gathered regarding the cause of accidents on Mountain Ranch Road. Simply put, the great majority of accidents are a result of the absence of functional road shoulders along the entire roadway. At this point, I would like to introduce photos of the road shoulder surfaces. These pictures are only random samples. The entire road could just as easily be shown. In the interest of brevity, I will not talk to the pictures, but will continue talking while the pictures are shown. The shoulder surface is sometimes only inches wide, almost never level with the roadway, and often terminating in a rut, gully, trench, or ravine. On the other side of the road, these various ground depressions often terminate in a 6 to 12-foot wall of dirt and rock. Each winter's rain continues to degrade the shoulder surface as there is no routine maintenance. The absence of functional shoulders is compounded by several layers of new road surface that has not been extended out to the old road surface. The resurfacing has built up a ridge between the new surface and a mixture of loose sand and dirt, and what is left of the old road surface. This mixture of stuff is essentially the road shoulder. The ridge condition exists along a sizable portion of the road and can be as high as 8 inches in some areas. Any number of distractions, driving errors, or oncoming traffic can result in the tire drifting off the roadway or abruptly falling off a ridge into what is basically unstable ground. A typical reaction is to overcorrect, attempting to get back over the ridge. This often results in an out-of-control car careening across the road or into a ditch. There are many tire marks on the road to attest to this scenario. The 10-year accident indicated that about 80% of single-car accidents are attributed to, quote-unquote, ran off the road. Most assuredly, lack of shoulders was the underlying cause of this high percentage of accidents. Certainly, speed and curved road shoulders add to the accident potential, and the combination, you want to wait a minute? And the combination of lack of shoulders, curved surfaces, and unsafe speed is the perfect storm for Mountain Ranch Road. Keep in mind, however, that slower speeds can also be dangerous, because once a vehicle leaves the roadway, there is often no forgiveness. Now, with a better standing of the causes of Mountain Ranch Road accidents, we can review the 10-year accident summary and see some specifics about accident locations. Okay. This is the graphic of the individual accidents distributed along Mountain Ranch Road over the 10-year period. Each accident is identified by its date and shown relative to the accident's nearest cross street, which is how police reports identify each accident. Notice the cross streets are the vertical lines in this case. As the title shows, the period is from February 97 to January 07. As mentioned, each accident date is shown in relation to its nearest cross street and in an area between adjacent cross streets known as road segments. Okay. For example, segment 5 between cross streets Rocky Road and Lower Michael contains 31 accidents. Segment 7, which is crosshatch and is the project segment, in other words, that's what Caltrans wants to do, this improvement, 2 accidents are recorded here, both some time ago, one in 1997 and one in 1999. The segment totals are shown below. Can you maybe lift it up a little bit? Thank you. Segment totals shown below, and the total for the 10 years is 105 accidents. The bottom row indicates the number of curves in each segment. Notice the direct correlation: as the number of curves increase, so the number of accidents. So a total of 105 accidents over 10 years calculates out easily to 10.5 per year, rounding that up to 11 a year, and you have about 1 accident a month. Okay, this is all in 9 miles, and if you take those little speed zones out, it's close at 8 miles. So we have 1 accident a month in an 8-mile stretch. That seems really, really high. Finally, I hope that you have noticed the relationship of the 8 road segments to the 3 major sections shown earlier. I'm trying to get back to our basic thing here. Segments 1 through 6 are the components of the lower curve section shown earlier. And likewise, the project segment number 7 is the same as the project section, and segment 8 equals the upper curve section. We can now move to the summary of all the data reviewed. It is this summary that we believe conclusively supports our position on this project. Initially, there was a 5-year accident period evaluated in connection with the grant request. Subsequently, Caltrans requested additional data, and the study period was increased to 10 years. Finally, we decided to examine the accident statistics for the first half of this year. This last graphic is therefore the summary of the data from the 3 time periods where all the lower level individual accidents are accumulated into their respective higher level sections. That's a little bit of fluff, but I think you can see what it is there. So this is the depiction of our 3-section depiction again, sorry. But now it's incorporating the data from the 3 time periods. So you can see for the 5 years period from July 01 to July 06, in the lower section curves, in the lower curve section, 43 accidents, none in the project section, 11 in the upper. The 10-year period, which we just showed in some kind of detail, you can look, there's 80 accidents in the lower curves, 2 in the project section, and 23 in the upper section. And just the first 6 months of this year, okay, there's already been 10 accidents in the lower curve section, none in the project section, 1 in the upper curves. So that's actually above the average, and I'm not sure why it's happening, but I do want to point it out that we're already on a course of a higher accident rates. The average for the 5 years, total of 54 accidents, and the 10-year average are both approximately the same, as I mentioned before, about 11 per year. And as I just said, 08's total already is far in excess of that. Clearly, this graphic shows an overwhelming number of accidents in the lower and upper curves, and the project area is basically free of accidents. Clearly, it also shows to me, and I hope many other folks, what road sections need improvements and what road sections do not need improvements. So we can ask, why did Public Works select their project section with these kind of numbers to view it? As stated earlier, I'm sorry, I do have to repeat this. As stated earlier, Public Works admitted to a quick and easy project. By having the right-of-way to the project area, there is no effort required to acquire land. Therefore, it's quick and easy. Secondly, Public Works stated in the December meeting that if this project went well, they would be well positioned to obtain additional grants. So given these two criteria, quick and easy future grants, where does the safety improvement enter into the project? It doesn't. Public Works also admitted that their baseline included avoiding eminent domain. Thus, the reason they gave several times for not considering shoulder improvements. What Public Works is really avoiding here is any effort to investigate other options to eminent domain. To continue to ignore all possible options to improve the dangerous section of Mountain Ranch Road is to continue to put commuters at risk. I have two conclusions. I'm almost done, Steve. We believe that the project has no merit and should not go forward. It basically borders on actually being fabricated. The public, my second conclusion is the public forum has given us, this public forum has given us an opportunity to present the dangers associated with driving Mountain Ranch Road. It also provides a notice to those government organizations responsible for public safety to take the necessary corrective action. Therefore, we expect that upgrading and improving Mountain Ranch Road will become a high priority and that available and future road funds will be used effectively and responsibly in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have some rebuttal too. Is that another period I wanted to comment on some of the statements from Public Works? Do you want me to hold it for another time?
Say it now, but I do want to, we've had our first two speakers and we're half an hour into this hearing.
Okay.
And I permitted that because this is an organized, clearly a group of people got together and tried to consolidate that, but you're welcome if there are specifics that you want to rebut in the presentation, that's okay, but I want to try to keep this.
Would you like me to do that now then or later?
Yes. Okay. I'd rather you do it all at once.
I think the real question is we're talking to different people at Public Works. As was stated by this young man here, that Public Works did require, Caltrans did require additional data, and so Public Works submitted a 10-year summary of accidents. And I think this young man stated that that was accepted and the project was approved. I've been in constant contact with Caltrans, and they have not approved it. And in fact, a week ago Friday, the project has been transferred to the Safety Division of Public Works headquarters in Sacramento. And I've been dealing with them. Now, they transfer people we're originally working with, transferred it to safety. And I've been talking to the safety engineer, and a week ago Friday, they were going to hold a meeting, and then they were going to come and actually tour Mountain Ranch Road, which delighted me because I think seeing is believing. And unfortunately, in fact, they asked me to stand by because I may have to answer questions. Unfortunately, by the afternoon, I called, and a medical emergency precluded that meeting and the tour of the road. But I was told that they are still reviewing this data, and Caltrans Safety may still negate this grant. So I'm not sure who we're talking to at Caltrans, but we seem to be getting different kinds of information. So I just want you to know that they're still considering it, and there's still questions about the data and how it's used. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers on the topic? We'll go out here first. Second.
Rosemary Wilson, McCullamy Hill, but I am a property owner on Mountain Ranch Road at 9561 Mountain Ranch Road. I did want to give, if I might, a chemist's view as opposed to the engineer who I enjoyed listening to, and that is to remind people that Mountain Ranch Road does extend past Upper Michael, some 3 miles, through Senders, along by Senders, and up to Sheep Ranch Road and Railroad Flat Road. And there have been several accidents outside my property in the time that I've owned it in the last 6 or so years. And I would like people to consider the whole of Mountain Ranch Road. I think it was stated on one of the overheads that the speed limit past Upper Michael Road was 35 miles an hour. I can assure you that people driving past my property, which is 1.5 miles up from Senders, drive that as if it were 55 miles an hour, and I believe it. In reality, it really is. So I would like you to consider the whole of Mountain Ranch Road. And from my experience of driving there, I would say that the section where the improvements are being proposed seems to be the straightest, nicest, from a driving standpoint on Mountain Ranch Road of essentially the entire road. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Honorable board members, hello, my name is Jerry Jerstad, and I am opposed to this project.
For the record, name?
Jerry Jerstad.
Jerry Jerstad.
Did you not?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Do I need to raise this up a little bit? Sure, people. I really enjoyed Bob Woods' presentation, and I hope you guys did too, especially where he was correcting Cynthia points. So anyway, I would like to discuss the public notification letter that was received by the property owners in the project area. It's very brief. I'm going to make it right. The project is not getting support. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And it states, after several meetings, Public Works was unable to reach a consensus with adjacent property owners on the project scope in spite of support for the projects by the broader community. This is not true. The project is not getting support by the broader community. The only support Public Works ever received for this dual turnout passing project was a total of 33 people out of 58 in attendance at the June 2007 public meeting. Remember, there are 400 signatures for road improvements that focus on the real problem areas of this road and spending the money in the areas where the accidents are happening. After meeting with Public Works 5 times last year, we thought our concerns were finally addressed in September 2007. Since we live in the project area and drive the road daily, we know better than anyone the difficulty of pulling in and out of our driveways while dealing with poor visibility and high-speed traffic. A consensus was reached, taking into account 5 driveways affected. Our design for safety satisfied all the residents within the project area. The design required further study by both sides. In December 2007, Public Works stated that our concept was too costly and came up with their final design. It's quite clear our concerns for the safety of our lives and other lives in this high-speed area were not even being considered, as now the proposed project is comprised of nearly 90% downhill passing capability. Public Works continually stated to us in all their meetings that to create and upgrade shoulders, they will have to start taking people's property, eminent domain. That's not true. These pictures clearly show there are numerous areas on both sides of the road along the entire 9 miles to extend shoulders and bring them up to a level of the existing road without taking people's property. We have been requesting for over a year to create and improve the shoulders on this road, to build up the shoulders with base rock like what was recently done on Highway 12 from San Andreas to Valley Springs. This would definitely decrease the number of accidents significantly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wait a minute. I had two people called before. I think the next was over here. You'd be third in line.
Hello, thank you. My name's Jim Heminger. I'm an 18-year resident of Mountain Ranch Road. I estimate I've been up and down Mountain Ranch Road somewhere between 12,000 and 15,000 times in my recent life. I'm a civil engineer and formerly worked with the Department of Public Works, and I strongly support this project for a variety of reasons. There's been a lot of discussion that accidents don't happen frequently within the project area, and that's not surprising. The project's being built where there's a straight-of-way. The fact of the matter is, though, my biggest concern there, and I've got an 80-year-old dad who comes up and visits me on Mountain Ranch Road. The average speed is 64 in the places, meaning people like to go faster. Dad only drives 40 or 45. So tailgating is one of the biggest problems to me on Mountain Ranch Road, especially if it's raining and especially at night when you get a big pickup truck who's impatient with bright lights, who's riding on the tail of folks. That encourages people to go faster than they're capable of doing before that section around the curves. And quite frankly, I think it encourages people, once they do get past the straightaway and pass, to make up for their lost time and go faster. So I do think constructing turnouts where folks can pass would cut down on tailgating and would, in fact, help minimize the number of accidents above and below the project area. I certainly concur with the need for improved shoulders along the road. There are places you could increase the shoulder, but you have to also look at the danger. If you build a shoulder for 100 feet and then you don't have the right-of-way, it actually can create a more dangerous condition by fooling people about the width of the road. I would estimate tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to do road shoulder improvements the full width of Mountain Ranch Road. It would be wonderful, but I don't think it's feasible. There's been criticism that this project is quick and easy. To me, that means it's feasible. So we are moving forward with a feasible project that can be done. And to delay a feasible project because other projects more expensive that would take years and years and tens of millions of dollars to do, to hold up this project because that would be a better safety improvement, to me seems foolish. I've talked to a lot of folks, my neighbors on Ponderosa Way, folks at the post office and up in Senders. There's mixed feelings, but the folks I've talked to, the vast majority, I'd say certainly over 80%, support a turnout lane. They've either been tailgated or faster driver been forced to tailgate behind a slow driver. Somehow it is more difficult to get proponents of the project out to the board meeting and testify before you than it is to get the opponents. But from my certainly anecdotal referencing of folks I know, there is considerable support for this. We're frustrated when we get behind a slow driver going 40, and we're also frustrated when there's a fast driver tailgating on us, making us go faster than we feel is safe for us. So it won't go on, but I certainly appreciate the concerns of the folks who may oppose the project, but for the good of the community and overall, I do think it would be a safety improvement, and I strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Ron Pargett, R.A. Pargett, General Engineering. My driveway is right in the middle of this project, and my concern is my driveway is 18% now, and they're going to take another 20 feet or so north of the highway, and I'll be coming down the driveway. Now I've got a landing where I can look both ways before I go out, and now I won't have a landing, or I'll be right in the westbound lane. I'll be in the fast lane when I'm trying to get in my place. It's a great project. I think it's just in the wrong spot. I'm all for many turnouts up and down Mountain Ranch Road like we had when I was a kid growing up here. Some have been fenced off. I think some of those can be reclaimed. I'm not sure, but there's obvious spots everywhere up and down this road to make many places for older people who want to drive slower, me being one, to pull over and let traffic go by. Every project sounds good until it's in your backyard. And I just ask that you think about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Jerry Pelfanio, the commander of the California Highway Patrol in Calaveras County. I am in support of this project. I think that there's a couple things I'd like to point out. When you start looking at the causation of collisions, there's the way they're reported, especially when vehicles are run off the road. It's somewhat of a catch-all on a mountainous, curvy roadway. That if a vehicle goes off the road, it's going to be unsafe turning movement, which gets it off the road. So just to look at the vehicle code section, which applies, is somewhat inconclusive. There's other aspects to each collision that I think that if you wanted to look at those particulars, could also cause it. How many of them were caused because of inclement weather? How many of them were caused by, there's many things, and it's not just one thing. So I think to be fair, when you look at causation, you have to look at several factors other than what's just written on the SWITTers. And when everyone comes up here and talks about the data, that's all that data, the CHP data, the SWITTers data, the Caltrans data, okay, our data is given, SWITTers is the data. It's the only one that counts because everything goes to it and they form it, okay, statewide. They collect all the data. The other thing I'd like to address is as far as turnouts, I think it does aid for slower traffic, it does aid for faster traffic. It has been said that in the project zone that you can pass. Yes, you can. However, if you can pass within your lane without going into the opposing lane, it is inherently safer because you're in your own lane. And if vehicles use the turnouts, then you stay within your lane and not in the opposing lane. When you can say you can pass in that location, well, yeah, that's if no one's coming the other way. And now you're assuming that people see someone coming. And again, weather comes into play, and it is safer to stay on your side of the road. As far as public safety, I know that if there is a collision up there and I get people who can move into a turnout and I can use that roadway to get up the road, it is safer and more efficient for my folks to get up and down that roadway. I think we can all agree that Mountain Ranch Road was never intended for the amount of vehicular traffic that uses it. And if we can make a portion of it safer, which Caltrans engineers have addressed and said that it will make this portion of roadway safer, I think that it's a good thing, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Mr. Chairman, I'm David Studley. I live in Mountain Ranch. I oppose this project, and I urge you not to spend the public money in favor of it. You've heard a number of speakers. I only want to emphasize a few points. First of all, Mr. Miller's associate who presented the plan talked about the justification of having turnouts. This is not a turnout project. Make no mistake about it, this is a passing lane project. Passing lanes do one thing. They permit cars to drive faster. If it were an uphill passing lane, given the presence of truck traffic up Mountain Ranch Road, it might make some sense, although it would go directly from the project segment into the curvy segment, and as I see it, the second highest accident segment in the study. But it's not uphill passing, it's downhill passing. That's going to increase the speed into an area one removed from the highest accident area in the whole of 9 miles of Mountain Ranch Road. People are in favor of pullouts. Courtesy doesn't always dictate that people use pullouts, but enhancing the speed on a downhill stretch into a section one section away from the most dangerous section of the highway will not enhance safety, but in fact detract from safety. And it makes no sense to spend the public money to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is under 5 minutes, and my Irish heritage precludes me from winging it, so I will read this. Hello, my name is Michael Falvey. I live just outside of Mountain Ranch, roughly 6 to 7 miles from the proposed road project we are addressing today. I have been driving Mountain Ranch Road for over 30 years on a daily basis. I believe I have enough experience on that road to be able to form an educated opinion on what forms a safety improvement and what doesn't. In a nutshell, I believe that constructing an area that encourages increasing one's speed, encourages passing other vehicles that are probably already doing the speed limit, and encourages drivers to engage in all kinds of unsafe driving tactics is in fact not a safety improvement, but a recipe for causing accidents that otherwise would not occur. However, today I'm speaking to you as a group concerning this project and wondering to myself, how much does each one of the board really know about this project? In today's Board of Supervisors atmosphere, with your heavy workload, your recent political races, and the many subjects you have had to devote your time to, I wonder just how much time each of you has spent addressing this specific issue. I am sure that your heavy workload, your knowledge of specific issues, and severity of said issues allows you to quote-unquote rubber stamp certain projects. You generally know about a project, know the general area, and it sounds like a good project. I'm voting in favor of it. Again, with your heavy workloads, that's quite understandable. This project, however, falls into a category, I believe, though, that calls for a lot of study by each and every one of you before it can be voted on. I ask each and every one of you, how much time have you spent investigating the pros and cons of this proposed project? Have you talked to the public about this project, not just Public Works? Have you been to the actual site of the proposed project and observed its impacts on the immediate residents of the area? Have you truly studied the traffic numbers that are presented by each side, and have you seen how these numbers have been generated? Now, I've eaten my share of humble pie in the past, and if I had to eat a slice now, it would not be the first. But I have a feeling that most of the board, excluding Supervisor Walensky, have not had the time, have had many other pressing issues, have spent a lot of time campaigning, and generally have not spent much time studying this important proposed project. If I am wrong about this, I'll grab the fork and eat the pie. However, if I am right, or even partially right, I ask that each and every board member not vote on this proposed project at this time, but shelve it until all supervisors can come back with an educated vote. I did mention Supervisor Walensky specifically. I would like to add that through this entire process, Mr. Walensky has taken the time and made the effort to make sure that all parties in this proposed project, both for and against, have been notified as to the progress of it. I know where he stands on this project. I'm on the other side of the fence. But on a few occasions, Steve has notified me personally of certain aspects concerning this project, and as I see it, even stopped the project from being railroaded through on at least one occasion. I personally and publicly would like to acknowledge Supervisor Walensky's efforts on this project, and thank you for those efforts. I now ask that the other supervisors make an effort nearing Supervisor Walensky's and investigate the pros and cons of this proposed project. Please don't approve it today. Take the time to study its impacts, study the numbers, and then make an educated vote. I feel that if you look at the numbers and study this project's negative impacts, you will see where it truly should end up. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers on the topic?
Good morning. My name is Paulette Trujillo, and my driveway is in the proposed project area. I would like to read you a letter this morning from a neighbor of mine. Couldn't be here today. It's as follows. To whom it may concern, I'm writing today about the proposed passing lane on Mountain Ranch Road. From 1997 to 2004, I was a full-time volunteer EMT firefighter for the local fire district and responded to well over 1,200 calls. In those 7 years, we never had one vehicle accident along the stretch of road in question. Yet, there are slow and/or inconsiderate drivers on Mountain Ranch Road. by putting in a passing lane / double turnout where the considerate drivers already pull off at Michael Road or Pargett turnoff is not simply cost effective. With a new turnout lane, many of the clueless and inconsiderate drivers who never pulled off before would inevitably drive into the fast lane at 40 miles per hour and make us pass illegally on the right-of-way, only adding frustration and hazards. For just part of the money that you will be spending, contributing to rather than alleviating a problem, we could hire a full-time CHP officer to patrol that 9-mile stretch of Mountain Ranch Road for 20 years and ticket the drivers who speed or cross the double yellow lines. Now, there would be money well spent and with notable results, too. Approximately 1/2 mile up the road, there is already a long, straight stretch of road with a broken yellow line for passing. If Caltrans wants to invest our taxpayers' money, put the improvements where the location and terrain is already prepared and more appropriate, and add a barrier along the dangerous S-curves by the historical marker that have injured and killed many drivers during icy winter conditions. Constructing a passing lane / turnout at the proposed location would forever stand as an asphalt monument to red tape and waste. You should know better than I that local government never says no to free money, no matter how unnecessary. Please don't make us say, "We told you so," after our tax dollars have already been wasted and it's too late. And in closing, I would like to just say to you, please, please don't let us become an accident statistic where there are none. Thank you.
Thank you. Don.
Good morning. It's still morning. My name is John Pargett, and you could say I live smack dab in the middle of this proposed project. I am not thrilled with the project. To not repeat what has been said, I will touch briefly on that at the meeting where 58 people, where you had a majority that said do some turnouts up and down the road, not downhill but uphill. 100% said shoulders, do the shoulders first. You don't get 100% together very often in this country, but if that's ever a mandate, I would say that's a mandate. Basically, the Mountain Ranch Road has about 18 miles of bad shoulder. If you want to continue up through Railroad Flat, it doesn't get better. Ron Pargett has a construction business, and he has a large driveway that he can go in, make a turnaround for a low bed. He's not the only one that uses it. CDF finds it very useful. They use it for a turnaround on their low bed. When they have a fire, they can dump a cat off in the street and then proceed up the road and put it in there and leave it there for several days. And it is actually out of the way for those that need to use the driveway. Now, this is designed to be a turnout project. Let me explain what this turnout project is and how the seduction of free money is a very powerful thing that can override some logic. You're proceeding for a grant to get a turnout lane. Well and good. In the proceeding of that, you, due to the amount of traffic, you have to do at least a 4-foot shoulder. With a gutter, you have to do a 5-foot shoulder. But now you don't have enough right-of-way to lay the banks back without getting into private property or collapsing private property. So now you have to do a retaining wall. So you're going to have a, 700-foot long retaining wall. And that demands an 8-foot shoulder because that's an obstruction. So now you have another lane, an 8-foot shoulder, and a retaining wall. Most public work agencies do not like to maintain retaining walls. Eventually, parts of them fail, and it's very pricey. So that all comes under this is free money. Let's keep going on this. It's free. But you have a share in this. You have a share of about $400,000, $350,000. The length of the project, you're going to lay out about $400 every linear foot going down the road, if not $500, in order to see this through. That's a pretty big price just for a turnout because of all the other amenities you have to build with it. Which now brings me down to something personal, my driveway. I have an uphill driveway from the creek up to the road. Vision is limited, and with the increased speeds, the time of reaction is, the window of reaction is closing because the cars are upon you quicker than they used to, could we say, the good old days. I sit up higher when I drive a truck. My loved ones sometimes drive a smaller car, and they sit lower, and being the road is high, you see even less. So this is a hazard to me and my loved ones entering this road. So much for entering. How about leaving? Well, making a right turn would be a no-brainer because I would have the slow lane. I would have the turnout lane. The downhill, the left turn lane into my driveway causes pretty grave concern. As it is now, I'd like to just say it's a no-brainer. I stop, wait for traffic to clear, traffic waits behind me, I'm in my driveway. When this project is in, I will stop, wait for traffic to clear, and there is a wide shoulder beside me. If someone wants to go around me at 20 miles an hour, I don't have a problem. What happens when they go around a little faster? Or what happens when they decide they don't have to take their foot off the gas? It's Katie bar the door, they can hit that gap and go around me. And what happens when it's a big truck? Now, I'm not saying I predict this. I know this. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a Johnny Carson funny hat. I have something called years of experience. Let's jump in my truck. We'll go a half a mile downstream. There was a project several years ago that realigned the Lower Michael Road intersection. Decent project. It made exiting Michael Road much safer. And since it was a grant program, they had to construct a wide shoulder, approximately 8 feet wide, on the one side. So when I go to that road, my experience is I stop, wait for traffic, and some folks stop behind me. Some folks ease around me on the wide shoulder, and some folks rip through at a shocking rate of speed. Sometimes these are big trucks to where you grit your teeth and you're in a vulnerable situation because all you can do is keep your foot in the brake, put a death grip on that wheel, and say, God help me. And you have not had the thrill of your life till a low bed goes through there about 50 miles an hour, and the trailer slips off the shoulder just a little bit, and it lurches into your lane. But so far, it's been missing by inches. So let's back that up to my driveway. If that happens down there, it's going to happen at my driveway. I want to go home at night, and I don't want to face that kind of a hazard. But it'll be a greater hazard because as the road is constructed, there will be a retaining wall, an 8-foot shoulder, and me waiting to make a left turn. Now, when you have an 8-foot shoulder against a retaining wall, you can't really fit the vehicles in because they don't want to scrape at the edge. So they're going to snuggle closer into my lane. When you have a big truck, he's not going to want to tear his mirrors off. He will have to get into my lane. So he will be closer to me there than at the Lower Michael Road. This puts my quality of life and the quality of life of my loved ones in the bottom of the barrel. One of the main objectives of this board is to preserve some quality of life and to preserve some safety. I'm at risk. My loved ones are at risk. I cannot let that happen. I cannot let that happen. This needs to be re-examined, requested that the project move away from my driveway. It's not the plan. The plan is to run it through my driveway. My loved ones and I look to you for some assistance. Please be brave enough to vote for safety before speed. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Overacker had been trying to get recognized for some time, so I'm going to call on him.
Hi, I'm Don Overacker. I live in Mountain Ranch, and I am in favor of the project. And why I'm in favor of the project is I tow a vehicle up and down Mountain Ranch Road. And even coming here this morning, I had somebody tailgating me coming down the road in my own private vehicle. And it comes down to other things as we don't think about emergency responses of the fire department, of the ambulance, of the police department. And we do need some kind of turnouts. I don't know exactly what the proper way and where we're going to spend the money to do this, but we do need turnouts on that road for our EMS system. And for those of you who live on the high end, up in Sheep Ranch and up on the other end, Railroad, and that way, it takes 40 minutes for an ambulance to get up there sometimes, and most of the times. And that's something we're not even considering here is the people at the other end of the road, the high end. We do need some kind of a turnout to let our police and fire and ambulance to get by. And those of us that do tow a big rig or something up and down the road, we need a spot to move. And so I'm in favor of some kind of project. And I also like the idea, and it hasn't brought up, is this speed sign. I've been in different places in the States where you go through a little community and there is a speed sign and you're coming in and I'm doing 45 and you're supposed to be doing 25. And I have slowed down because of that sign's there. The sign hasn't been mentioned also. So there is some good benefits to this also. And anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tim Schlentz. My family and I live on Lucky Jim Mine, which is directly affected by this proposed project. First, I believe that this grant is based on misrepresented data, which has already been brought to your attention. Secondly, I agree that the road is unsafe and is in need of improvement, but the proposed project could only increase the risks. Speed is the #1 factor contributing to the accidents on Mountain Ranch Road, and pursuing this project will only increase the speed. Also, I'd like to point out that there's a well-established bus stop at Woods Way, which is directly affected by this project. This bus stop has been in use for 48 years. We feel our children will be at risk with the high speeds that this proposal will create. I ask you please to look at the facts that my neighbors and I have brought to your attention today, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. I'm Robert Lehman. I'm a battalion chief with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. And in order to be brief, I would just like I'd like to say that the information that's been provided here to me today, CAL FIRE would be in favor, along with the Public Works Department, Caltrans, and California Highway Patrol, and we're in favor of the project.
Thank you. Comments?
My name is Pamela Overacker, and I live in Mountain Ranch. I feel I've been at the meetings, the first one that was held, where I believe expressed before that there was just a small amount of people and a certain amount that the majority did choose that they wanted some stuff done to the road, and that there weren't as many people there opposing it. I believe there was another meeting where, again, more of the public was for improvements to our road, and exactly what we're proposing through the department. I don't think we're being represented here today enough by the side of Mountain Ranch community who is for this project. I spoke to many of them in the last week, trying to get people here at 9 o'clock this morning. The majority of the people who are for this project felt that it had already been decided on, that it was a done deal. We never tried to get signatures of the other 2,000 people that live in the area to try and counteract the 400 signatures that have been gotten. I just feel, I'm feeling and I'm hearing the portion and the people who don't want it where it is, but I feel we're not getting a lot of representation here today of the people who really do want it. And you can't, we need a break somewhere. Somewhere there needs a break, and you can't seem to do it back in the curves, and you can't seem to do it up higher in the curves. And the one portion where it was showed that there was a straightaway and there's a passing lane, I don't think that helps there, because you're coming into Mountain Ranch and you're going to be slowing down to 35 miles, 40 miles an hour within a quarter of a mile. And coming back down, there's plenty of area there for people to pass safely. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Wally Matlock. I live in Mountain Range. I think we all agree that Mountain Range Road is a pretty dangerous road, and I like to support any incremental improvement that can be done. I see this as one of many projects that needs to be done on this road. We've got to start someplace. I think it's too bad, and I feel bad for the 5 driveways that are affected. But, we're being held hostage up the road by 5 driveways. And I think that in the interest of general safety and in the interest of not having any more or fewer deaths and injuries on that road, a decision needs to be made for public good. And I think that the road has been constructed in any major way in 1955, which is, 50, 60 years ago. I'm in the possession of newspaper articles from that day that state that 65 people lived in Mountain Range in those days. today we're talking about 2,000 plus. We're looking at 20 times as many people, in the area. The road needs to keep up with the population and with the traffic. And as one that seems to get stuck behind a slow driver every time I go to the airport, I'm looking for any possible way to get that traffic flowing a little better. And so I like to express my support for this project as one of many that will follow. Thank you.
Wally, I don't think I'd ever take you for a speeder, but now we've got a confession.
Good morning. My name is Marge Mobley from Mountain Ranch. I've been driving that road for 57 years. And I find it hard to believe that 5 driveways can decide the use of 2,000 vehicles a day. And that's what they checked. And also I had a call the other day, and a friend said, how fast do you drive the road? And I said 55 where it's legal. And she says, oh no, you must drive 40 because that's as fast as I can go. I don't think that's fair. And I'd like to have some statistics on the substance abuse in the vehicle accidents, which nobody seemed to come up with, because there is a lot of abuse on that road also. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dina Guido, and I live in Murphy's, but I'm moving to Sheep Ranch. I drive that road quite often, and my question is, are we doing this at the right time? Our county is in financial troubles right now. Is this the time for us to be spending $400,000 to do this? My other question is, Murphy's Grade Road, it's a nice road. It's been handling traffic from residents, from tourists, motorcycles, bicyclists, and it doesn't have any place to get off the road so people can go faster. And it's still there, and it's still working. So why are we trying to do this right now? Maybe now isn't the time. Maybe the supervisors should think about it, and we should do this a little bit later when we're financially able to do this, because finances right now for our county are not good. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Paul DeRone, and I live in Mountain Ranch, and so that we don't have a lot of repetition, I'd just like to ditto to what Wally said. I think he said it all. Thank you.
That going to be the last word on this? All right.
Can I answer a few of these things?
Actually, the next part of the repartee is that our staff will try to answer questions that came up, get facts clarified. We will then move it back to the board to ask questions and try to clarify before moving on to recommendations and a vote. Any statements? I took down a number of issues that were raised that might need some clarification, but would you like to start off?
I'd just say that we'd be happy to respond to your questions. I could just clarify a couple of things. Some people refer to them as turnouts, and some people are talking about passing lanes. The turnouts are typically 400 feet in length, as they are in this project, and a passing lane is typically a half mile. That's a distinction you should know, just for the purposes of the conversation and discussion today. The other thing you need to know is that this section, in part, was selected because we do have right-of-way on that section of Mountain Road. We acquired that right-of-way. It's ours to use for traffic improvements in that area. There are other areas up there that in the future we will have to acquire right-of-way as additional money comes available to do work on these roads. When we acquire right-of-way from a private property owner, hopefully it's a cooperative process, and if it isn't, it goes to eminent domain. It can stymie projects, it can hold them up, it can take what I consider very scarce funding to acquire land that you don't have possession of currently. So in part, this area was selected because we did have the right-of-way. We could keep the costs down and the project could move forward without being stuck perhaps in court over an eminent domain issue. The other thing is that a lot of people talked about free money and how we go after free money. I'm here to tell you that in this county today, I could probably give you $200 million worth of projects that we feel need to be done in the public works arena that there is no funding for. And every opportunity that the state or the federal government issues guidelines for grants, we scour those grants and we find grants that we have a situation that we can address and apply for a grant and make a road safer. We will do that every time. In this case, there is a matching amount of money. I believe it is $400,000 that the county is proposing for this project as our share. That $400,000 wouldn't get you a quarter of that project by itself. We have to rely on grant money. We have about 30 projects in this county right now in one way or another are based somewhat on grants, and we pursue those grants based on the need and the specific area and the criteria that's established by Caltrans and the other grantors that meet and comply with their requirements. As it survived the scrutiny, there was follow-up evaluation of this grant application by Caltrans staff. They supported it. We submitted the information they wanted, and other than the one speaker today who suggested there are people in Sacramento that will still stop this project or could stop this project, we are unaware of that, and I didn't hear any names of any people provided today to the board that we could verify that information with. We're prepared to respond to questions.
I wondered whether you might respond to a couple things that were raised from the audience first, and then we'll open it to the board for further questions. But there were a number of speakers that talked about driveways and how they move into this potential passing or turnout, I should say. How do you anticipate mitigating any potential hazard there? Are there money within this project to be able to keep line of sight, make sure that the driveways are as safe or safer in their entry to the road?
Every part of this project is designed or will be designed to accommodate those ingress and egress points off this project. You heard from, I believe there's 5 driveways in that area. I think all 5 of the property owners spoke today. We have had this discussion in meetings, and we will be sure that when this is designed, it will be designed to be safely exited and entered by vehicular traffic. We cannot, just based on the traffic guidelines, design something that would be inherently safe by changing it. So we will abide by the traffic regulations and the laws and the standards that are established by the Caltrans directives.
So work on those entryways would be the county work to do. It wouldn't fall to homeowners to correct or deal with the impact.
Within the perimeter or the edges of the project, that is correct.
Okay, on the money question, which was, I think, the last question raised, the thought was let's wait to another date to accomplish something like this. I'm interested in where the money comes from, whether it's designated for, particularly for road improvement, or whether it is coming out of general fund money that might go for other things that are being cut at the moment. Can you clarify the sources of local money and what the kinds of expenditures that we could use that money for?
This is not general fund money. This is coming from our matching portion is coming from the RIM and the RSTIP, the Regional State Transportation Improvement Program.
So this is money specifically designated for road improvement only?
That would be correct.
All right. And Well, there were a number of other questions that came up, but I'll cover that later under my own narrative. Board, any questions, clarifications?
One question. Michael, when the decision was made to pursue this project, you were not at that time employed by the county, so I don't know what your history. Were alternative projects evaluated, such as doing extensive shoulder work or other locations for a passing or turning lane? Or I have no way in my mind to compare the cost and feasibility of doing shoulder work, let's say, for instance, as was recommended or suggested in the curvy areas where the traffic collisions seem to be more prominent. I don't know what that would entail and if it was looked at. You?
I started here in October of 2007, and I participated in the December meeting of a group of property owners, primarily the opponents to this project. But that was discussed at the time, and I saw some of the slides today, and I was looking at the grade and the way it dropped off from the edge of the roadway, and I'm imagining that to elevate that to a level that could be supported structurally takes more than base rock. We'd have to have some type of retaining structure at the bottom to hold the roadway extension or expansion of the side in place. There'd be additional acquisition of right-of-way, because you simply can't draw a line 90 degrees up from the ground where your public right-of-way ends and private property begins and build to that point without putting some type of structure in. I've driven this road twice. I drove it right after this meeting last year, and I drove it, I think it was right around Christmas time when it was foggy. I take the long way home to Arnold now. I don't go back up there unless I have to. I can't speak to the other alternatives. I can tell you that I'm confident that the people that picked this project, the location of the project, considering the Switters information, considering the input from the Highway Patrol, that this is a good project at a good location, and I'm hoping that it's one of many that we'll see on this 9 miles or more segment of Mountain Ranch Road over time as more grant monies become available.
Thanks. Other questions?
Yes, I do. Mr. Miller, I'm not sure. It was mentioned that it was a 600-foot passing lane, then a 400-foot passing lane, and on page 5 of our handout, it said traffic turnouts on a half-mile segment. I appreciate your defining the difference between a passing lane and a turnout, because I had just written that question to our CHP representative here and asked that same question. So what is it? What will the length of that turnout or passing lane be? Is it a turnout?
And actually, if I could, I think there's been an evolution on this. It started at one level, started a passing lane, it moved to turnouts in opposite directions, and it moved from, at that point, 1,200 to 800 to 600, and now 4. But maybe a little bit of that history might help inform.
I was going to defer to Board Member Cladino and see what his answer was. I'm just kidding.
It better be.
The project as proposed has 2 400-foot turnouts.
I missed it by 200 feet.
Early versions of this showed passing lanes, showed longer turnouts as alternatives that were looked at. And the final project as proposed has the 2 400-foot turnouts.
In looking at the presentation, Bob Wentz, I'm not sure if I have your Woods. Sounds good. Okay. This reminded me of Highway 4 from Murphy's at least to about Bryce Station, heavily trafficked road, downhill. We put in what, and Bill might help me, what we call on Highway 4 the Cantieri turnouts, named after a retired CHP commander. And they are turnouts. They are marked prior to, so as we're coming up the hill on these curvy roads, looking exactly like your pictures did with the shoulders just straight down, then those people who are tailgating, speeding, and so forth know that up ahead, a quarter of a mile and what have you, there will be a turnout. Now, I will grant you they skewed and screwed up the first turnout, and then they went to the second turnout, which is right past it. And it has significantly helped the movement of traffic on Highway 4 from the town of Murphys to about Bryce Station. It looks exactly like what you were showing us. I didn't see it as a speedway, but more as the trucks, the trailers, the motorhomes, et cetera, who don't want to go as fast as what the posted speed limit is, can move over, which is why I was interested in if this was a turnout lane or a passing lane. And the other question is, and maybe the lieutenant can answer it, on the Cantieri turnoff on Highway 4, is that a 400-foot or a 600-foot turnout? Do you know? Okay, Bill, do you know?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't built to the original plan, so I didn't go out there and measure it after they messed it up.
Okay. And then we have the one on Highway 4 after the airport and before you get to Angels Camp. As you're heading into Angels Camp, there is that turnout near, there's the turnout. Is that a 400, 600-foot turnout? Do you know about that one? I'm just trying to get a frame of reference what they're planning to do on Mountain Ranch Road. Okay. My experience on the Highway 4 corridor, we've worked real hard from Murphys to the Alpine County line trying to get turnouts. Not the passing lanes, but turnouts for the reasons that have been discussed and the concerns that have been discussed on Mountain Ranch Road. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other questions or comments from the board?
I think as Mr. Falby, is it the gentleman that talked about the fact that the supervisor should table this today and go out and take a look themselves. That presents a real dilemma for me because I don't think that in one trip out there that I could become quite the expert that like Wally has expressed his many years of driving up and down that road under all kinds of conditions. When you have a session like this and you have what essentially is the testimony of experts, experts maybe loosely defined, but people that have driven that road for upwards of 30 years, I'm not oblivious to the concerns brought up by the 5 driveways, but I'm very much inclined to go with the weight of the testimony that says that this is a good project. We shouldn't let this window of opportunity go by. Mr. Parget's concerns about the 18% driveway and the fact that he has a bench to rest on now before turning either left or right. I am probably of everything that I've heard here that concerns me the most. Somebody referred to the fact that he has trucks and trailers. I can visualize in a little sketch that I drew for myself here how his driveway conceivably, if our right-of-way allows the road to be built horizontally out into his declining driveway, we could unwittingly increase his driveway from a current 18% to something more. We've got to look at that. We have to take that into consideration. So anyway, I want the gentleman who gave us the admonition that we should go out and look at it. I wish that I had time. I'm not sure what that would show me that other experts haven't brought here already this morning. That's all for now.
Any other comments or questions? I had a couple of additional questions before commenting. There is a suggestion, and I believe it was Mr. Falvey who suggested that we take some extra time. I'm interested in what the impact of that might be, what staff has to say about the timing that we're in. I know we've, and I was probably personally responsible for extending the time on this a number of months for many meetings and discussions with stakeholders, et cetera. So I'm mindful that I may be a culprit in all of this, but I'm curious about where we are in the timelines relating to funding the project and what any delay might, what kind of effect might have.
I'll defer to Jonathan on the specifics for this project, but I'll just tell you generally the engineering division of the Public Works Department has more than a full plate of projects, and this project is at the front. It's already scheduled. Jonathan has people assigned after Solmus does their work to start on the next phases of this. We have, I believe you have a document you received with your budget this year that talks about 35 projects. With the staff that we have, anything that slips or falls, we could suffer the chance of not complying with the grant timelines to lose funding. Now, I don't know if that would be the case in the specific project, but I'll defer to Jonathan and tell you what the specific project timelines are.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve. I'm going to try and address the specifics here. Presently, we would require 9 months for the completion of this design phase. So from the time that this professional service agreement is approved, we would need 9 months prior to the time when we could begin the seeking of construction firms. We have a limited construction season in the summer months. At this time, if we were able to have approval for the design, things went according to plan in the summer of 2009. And as well, that would put us inside the period of the grant life.
Thank you. I wonder whether in the design phase of this, whether we could place a requirement that the driveways that enter into this stretch would be mitigated as part of that design.
As Mike stated earlier, in any design, the engineering work that is done has to be in conformance with state guidelines. Site distance has to be considered. The ability for vehicles to ingress and egress, encroach upon Mountain Ranch Road would be considered in that design. Also considering this is not a passing lane, so there would not be traffic flowing through this turnout. This turnout could, in some ways, it would actually improve the site distance for ingress and egress for the driveways that are encroaching in that area. They would then have the opportunity to utilize this turnout to gain speed to merge into the flow of traffic.
Okay, actually, I understand what we're legally bound to do, but I'm interested in kind of another measure here, which is we've heard a number of concerns about things getting worse than what they are for regardless of what the minimum standard might be, that people are concerned about possible harm done to their safe entrance onto it. And what I'm looking for is a no harm done arrangement. I'm wondering whether you see that as possible with these driveways.
These engineering standards are not a minimum standard. They're an engineering standard, and they will determine for us what the approach, angle, and departure will be for these driveways coming into the project. We are obligated to design it with safety in mind, and the staff wouldn't compromise that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, does this also include grade? If there's a driveway that's 18%, can that be maintained as part of this?
I believe in some of the earlier drawings I saw that was accommodated, that the driveway was going to come in at close to the same grade, but I couldn't say for sure if it was exactly 18. It might even be less.
All right. Thank you. I guess I should probably, being the supervisor whose district this is in, make a comment or two. I'd like to first note that if anybody was looking for an issue that is deeply felt but well debated, I would hope this would be a model of it. I applaud the proponents and opponents for speaking professionally, arguing issues, not personalities, and find it to be a model we all might learn a thing or two from. So I'd like to, and staff as well, and everyone participating, I think, did a superb job of presenting their concerns. There is a hand going up as I speak.
Steve, you sound like you're closing up here. I mean, I'd like to be able to rebut a little bit like Public Works did. I have very short statements in that regard. Am I going to get that shot?
I guess I will permit this one rebuttal. I assume you're speaking for the group.
Okay, I think that's fair.
All right, sure enough.
Okay, so I'm still Bob Woods.
I will wrap up my comments after yielding time to the gentleman from Mountain Ranch.
Okay, these are comments I'm trying to address from various things brought up by not only you guys but the general public. First of all, everyone seems to keep forgetting that there is a passing area 1 mile away. I mean, so you got a passing area 9 miles away, you got another passing area. That's a little unique on our California roads, I think. The thing that bothers me more than any other thing, well, there's two, but we keep putting off recognizing that problems have to be fixed here. Now, Public Works stated it would be too long, it would be too expensive, we don't have the money. I've been on that road 11 and a half years, and there's never been any work done on those shoulders. They are absolutely deadly dangerous. They've killed people, and yet we say, oh, we can't have the money or we don't have the time. But sooner or later, we got to face up. That stuff has to be fixed. When are we going to do that? You want to you get here, get a bunch of money? No, we're not going to put that towards that. We're going to fix this little job. We'll just eat up that amount. We got to work on these problems. These are serious things. Some people come up here and said that they didn't have enough on their side coming up to speak on behalf of the project, and that they've just said, we're for the project. I'm just wondering if those people realize that we've gone through a year and a half, or at least a year of meetings, and we've gone through the design change 3 times. I'm not sure that some of these people even have any idea what the last concept is. The first concept was thrown out by the public. The second concept lasted even less time. And now we're into a third concept, and some of the people who are for it, I'm wondering if they really know what they're for. I mean, they have a general idea, but they don't know the specifics. I think they just want to do something, and I think that's a danger. Why do we just want to do something when we could do something right? So another person mentioned that are 5 driveways holding this project up. It's not 5 driveways. It's 8 families. 8 families, people. And 1 death is not going to equate to doing this job. We feel we're going to be a danger. Our danger is going to be increased driving and getting in and out of our properties, and that's what may be holding you up. It's not the fact of 5 driveways. Let's make it clear. It's people involved there. Public Works said, do you want to know who I was talking to in Caltrans? Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with Sharia Shaw. Everybody deals with Sharia. She's a general thing. The gentleman's name in safety who's handling this now, who's responsible for this last review, his last name is Rodding. For some reason, I can't think of his first name now. But those are the people we've been dealing with, and so you're more than welcome to get in touch with them, which I'm sure you will. As a matter of fact, I really thought that maybe you had, because, as I mentioned, a week ago Friday, they were going to come up on kind of a surprise visit, and that got canceled. But the very same morning, there were some signs up cautioning about the ridges, the gullies and the shoulders. I said, isn't that amazing? Here we might get a visit, and all of a sudden these signs, these caution signs pop up, and I've never seen one there in 11 years I've been here. So I thought that was kind of unique. The other question I'm trying to answer is, again, Public Works stated to get in and actually fix some of them are pretty big depressions in the ground, big ravines, that it would take getting additional land. Well, as I understand it, these roads are prescriptive right roads. So you have the authority to go in, especially in matters of safety, to go back in as far as you have to go in, fill in, and do what you want to fix that section of road. Okay, we can keep going on that. Okay, turnouts. Turnouts, they certainly serve a purpose, but as I experienced over the years, and I'm sure you all have, a lot of times they're not used. You get some guy up in front of you, and trucks especially, they won't pull over in those turnouts. They're not going to move. They're going to go on their own speed. Okay, and so they aren't always the answer. But in this case, the choice is, are we going to put some kind of turner in there, or are we going to get back and fix the real problems? Okay, and finally, I want to bring up a little fact of life for everybody here. If we proceed with this project, I want you to know that come next summer, you're going to be, if anybody going up and down that road, you're going to be sitting on a traffic line every time you want to go to work, come home from work, go to the store, pick up the kids, drop off the kids. You're going to do that for 6 months. And you're going to sit there and you can say, why am I doing this? Or you say, oh, because they're going to put a little pass-out area here, and these people can just go flying by then. But it is not going to stop the accident rate. That accident rate, I'll come back in another year or 2 years, and I'll show you those numbers are still going to be high in those curve sections because you're not fixing the problem. And so everybody's going to be sitting around in the hot summer for 6 months, and it's going to be just a big waste. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one point of clarification.
Sure.
I have an email from Randy Rodding from the Safety Program Coordinator, Division of Local Assistance in Sacramento. Came in May 29th. It was forwarded from Sharia. The statement at the end of the first paragraph says the accidents included in the safety index calculation were consistent with the instructions provided in the HR3 program guidelines. The email goes on to talk about the application cycle and how we were funded. We had an index of 89, 45 applications of 68 were funded. So Mr. Ronning has concurred with the information that was submitted to them for further review. I just want to let you know that.
Excuse me, I didn't...
Sir, really, I think we're done with the colloquy here. We are in need, actually, I've watched this board in the last week work through 1 lunch and 2 dinners, and I'm just sure none of you want to see us do hypoglycemia again. So we're going to take this back to board discussion and attempt to try to make a decision. So I'll continue with what I was going to say, and then I'll open it to the board for possible action. There are a couple of issues that haven't really been discussed hardly at all today, and I want to make sure they at least get some mention. One of the places where we've had the most accidents in winter is called the Polar Express, and one of the, at least that's the local name for it. It's a place that ices over, and it stays that way for a good part of winter, at least when we get those cold snaps. What we're interested in doing as part of this project, and that is funded, as I understand, for it, is to put sensors in the road, determine when it's freezing, and give warnings, have a sign that will give warnings, and also keep track of people's speeds. This is a way to get people thinking about that stretch of road, and it's anticipated that that improvement alone will save a considerable number of accidents, which I don't think there's any dispute between the parties about how many accidents happened there. That's one of the high, if you're looking at the different sections of road, that place is a mess. Secondly, there were, in the original public meeting, which involved nearly 200 people and identified Mountain Ranch Road as a concern of the community at large, without going into exact specifics, some of the things that were raised included the Polar Express, which this is responsive to, and also talked about bots, dots, or rumble strips. Bots, dots were thrown out on account of the snowplow issue, but rumble strips in sections of this road are also included in this proposal, as I last read it, and I wanted to check and make sure that that's still the case. All right, so the answer is... So finally, we get to the turnout question, and this is the case. I don't know if any of you saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the guy's trying to cross the bridge, and they cut a leg off, he still goes forward, they cut another one, 2 arms, and finally there's just a head saying, I'm still going to cross. That's really this turnout situation. It went from, a very lengthy passing lane to a smaller turnout, then another smaller turnout, then yet another smaller turnout, and that didn't happen by callous indifference to public concern. It happened as a specific is I faith effort on the part of the due process, and I know you. It makes information that's come to on Mountain Ranch Road. Well, I go up and passed risky road that I travel. A huge difference in at that point rather than experience with on very small turnouts. 26, it's on a lot of our places. So I've got some off the road. I have these two. There is no that on my watch, on my conscience, problem, and within with a specific I believe that we will arguing different points of that, but when I listen to the Highway Patrol improve, there are different opinions in the rumble strips, turnouts. Another 10 years going up in the driveways very carefully. Would accept this money. Concerned about the question as well. At first, I'd like to get one, and I've said it over and over.
This process is not only that is already have gone through I also if we sought out that may not be in the immediate mechanism. So we 7 submitted viewed groups and distinct by.
That gives
So there
local contract get rid of
a problem with that program. Into that.
To a turnout because you're going for almost a halt. Roads, I think, is a good thing, particularly and of getting
contested sides on this issue. I live what happened there was driving in drivers involved in driving. The primary this project has been obviously you can do a lot of things. Center line. Project.
Advisors, whatever, mission statement, and but anyway, I feel
project. So low-income families. Retrains of the grant.
How great it was to affect everybody. This project and you can tell. We've done extensive advertising. The building looks like. No, they'll be back. Is out of
for
Okay, well, we'll open the Is there such a